Hi, and welcome to Thursday with a Friend. My name is Lawrence, and this will be the only time you ever see me wave a Canadian flag. And that is because my next guest, my special, special Canadian friend, gave this to me. Of course, he gave this to me in the United States of America, where, G.I. Joe is a real American hero. Crusty Old Crow, thank you for joining. I don't know why you just screamed into the mic like that. How are you doing today?
I'm impressed I had that effect. No, I'm doing good. Thanks very much. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate this.
Thank you for joining me. I hope you were the one that was supposed to be on this week. Um, I was thinking like, who is supposed to be on next week, and I haven't even looked. So
I was
if it's
probably
you,
I hacked his internet again and made sure that he didn't show up. So,
so how have you been? How's
uh,
your day?
it's been busy. I'm doing an entire move by myself while I have my son and mom there. And they're off in Toronto, so I got hit with like a massive truckload. So I'm kind of buried in. But aside from that, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
I'm glad. Well, I don't like having people on and being like, life's really hard and it's been rough, and
Oh,
then we go into a big. I become a psychologist. I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. No,
psyche's a different thing, man. I mean, that's a day to day, but I mean, what is it? We're talking about toys here. That's not a bad day, man.
you want that? Here, I'll give that to you if I can find it.
We're talking about freaking toys here.
I know we
They're
want the
toys.
creamery, but
I love Dreadnought Ryan. Poor Dreadnought Ryan. When I had him on my show, it was like we were on like a half hour early, and my daughter, who you got to just see her, she came in and she just went before we went live, and he was just laughing like 15 minutes. He's just sitting there laughing his ass off. So maybe it wasn't poor Dreadnought Ryan because he thought it was pretty damn hilarious. So anyway, let's get into it. Where does your name Crusty Old Crow come from?
oh yeah, we didn't ask. Okay, that's
I know
yeah,
you're trying to change your name, and I told you not to.
no, that's fair. Okay, see if I can make this shorter than usual. So when I was in the military, towards the end, I was teaching on a lot of leadership courses. Eventually, you have to take these future master corporals and sergeants out to the field and teach them how to do patrols and defensives and things like that. They're living out of their backpacks in the woods. And in this area where I did all our training, we had these two crows, these massive black crows. And these things
Why they
were,
got to be black?
well, okay, Canadian American crow. Oh, man. So
I love that response. Why's it got to be black ice? Why?
So I always say crows, ravens, same thing. Like these are really, if you guys know any, like massively intelligent bird, right? And a lot of these guys that we train, they come from the inner cities of like Toronto or Vancouver. Thanks, Kat. And so they're not familiar with what these things can actually do because they live in apartment buildings and things like that. They don't deal with them in their yards, right? So tell them like make sure you lock up your kid or the crow's going to open it up and he's going to take your stuff. And they're like, oh, they can't be that bad. We're like, listen, they're ex-dead sergeant majors and they're possessing the bodies of crows now. They know what to look for. And sure enough, these guys wouldn't secure their kit, and you'd wake them up in the morning and be like, go find all your stuff, because the crows had pulled everything out of these guys, rucksacks, duffel bags. I'm doing buckles, like complex buckles and all that. So Crusty Old Crow was my warning to everybody, and then it became my name.
I love that. I love that it actually comes from something, and it's not just like my name. I just made my, I put it together as stuff that I'm into, but it wasn't something that was given to me or goes back to any type of, history or anything. So I that's awesome. And very seldom do I get, there've been a few, but most of them are kind of like, oh, that's Toy Connections. Where'd you get your name from? Well, we talked about toys. My name is Ken. Okay. You know, it's like, it's not that deep. So, all right, before we get into this, let's say hi to the chat because you got a bunch of people here that tuned in to see A Crusty Old Crow. So we have Same Time Toys is here. Daredevil Dave is here. We have Model Misfits. Legend Series is here. There's everyone. They're all at the beginning. Woody 222, who was just a guest of mine. We have a Son of a Crayon Slayer. Matthew Matson, my first moderator, and the only one that's going to be in here for at least a little bit. We have Jay Astro, who is in the house. It's all the same people. You guys are having a hell of a conversation. Derek Holloman is here. And here, Richard Burns. Usually there's a lot of different names all right at the beginning. G.I. Bro with the best guns in the business. I got to start challenging him, man. I'm like, really got to get back down there. And
99% protein and 1% just determination, right?
Billy Renfro is here. Pretzel John is in the house. And Joe Fan 84. That's a newer name, right? I think you've commented a few times, so thank you. Love having you here. We have Christoph Scuba. Row Keeper is here. You know, you people are the same people. Christine Mendoza. Viper Scout is here, who was also a guest not too long ago. 3-star draw, one of your co-hosts. And SCS Dog.
Yeah.
Ooh, hey, here's a new one. Rad Toys Galaxy. I don't believe that I've ever seen you before, so welcome. Maybe you're a fan of Crusty Old Crow and the Backyard Battlefield guys, or maybe you just like Crusty Crows. I don't know.
Oh, it would be a weird search to find me.
Yeah, but I told you don't change your name because nothing else. If someone is trying to find you, you don't. Your name isn't hard to find. Try and find Ostradamus Toys. Good luck. You're gonna find out all kinds of stuff from, an Ostradamus. Like, what the hell is that? Crusty Old Crow. It is three easy words, just like a punk with toys. Really easy words.
Can I mention, have you spelt out those words as an acronym, the COC, and said it out loud? Like, that's another part of the joke, is because that's what crows say, but that's what we talk about in the Army when things are getting hard. We're getting the COC. We're getting the COC real hard. So that was the part of that too. Sorry, I meant to mention that.
No, I would have said corrosion of conformity.
Yeah.
Quickly, Rad Toys. I want to say Rad Dad because Rad Dad pops in every now and then. Says, I've seen your videos, never cut a live though. Well, thank you for joining us. I'll do my best to entertain you. And if I suck, then I'm gonna blame it on the guy over here. Because we all know I'm fucking hilarious. All right.
You're rolling the dice on the snow Mexican, right?
Yes, you are a snow Mexican. But you don't come off as a snow Mexican, man. Like, I see you. I don't like. Honestly, if I met you, I would think you were more of a Southern person.
Yeah, no. And just for the record, guys, I have not a drop of Latino blood in me. Guys, no, and we're not saying that.
Snow Mexicans are Canadians.
Yeah.
And believe me, it's not something I made up. It was something I had recently heard. And I live in Detroit. So, I mean, the fact that I've never heard that was like blew my mind. But then you're like, what the hell? Snow Mexican. What an awesome name.
I loved it. I loved it.
Rad Toys Galaxy says, I always blame my co-host as well. All right. So let's just get into it. How old are you? You're old. It's in your name.
I'm gonna be 50 again in a week. I've decided I'm gonna treat like age like money in your pocket. I'm just gonna round it to the nearest tenth. So technically, your way, I'm 51 soon, but I'm yeah.
I have told people, especially women, for years. I go when they start complaining, like, when you're in your 30s, when they're like, oh my god, I'm gonna be like 34, and you go, just say you're almost 30. When someone asks that, you're almost 30. What? You can't say that. I go, you round it. You're going to round down. Well, what about when I'm 35? Well, then you're fucked. Because then you're almost 40. Not my fault. I'm giving you a way out for the first 4 years of a new decade, right?
Yeah.
I can't help it if, after that, you figure out if you're so worried about your age. So again, if you're a woman and you're 44 years old and someone asks how old you say, I'm almost 40. Okay, right? You're not lying.
No, it's like a dartboard. You missed it by 4 inches,
Yeah.
but
And
you're up there.
they teach us how to round up and down. And technically at 5, you have to round up. So you just round out. Once you hit 45, 55, well, then you're on your own. You figure out what you want to do. You're going to lie about it anyway because you're a woman. Age-wise, I'm not saying all women lie. Man, I'm just digging a hole. I don't have a girlfriend. Doesn't matter. All right, so
bouncing around on things outside. So every now and then, if you don't hear a puma, you might hear a cat knocking over a tower of boxes.
Any bobcats?
No bobcats. Sorry, that was it. I say puma, you say bobcat. Tomato, tomato.
All right, so you're almost 51. So we're in the same age. But I will say this: I find people that are 2 or 3 years older than me, they seem to really have a bigger fondness normally of Star Wars because those 2 years it's huge when you think about the original Star Wars movie. Because I don't remember the original Star Wars movie coming out. I saw Jedi 7 times in the movie theater. Wow. So it's like I don't remember seeing Empire. If I did, I know I didn't see Star Wars because I would have been a baby. But those 2 or 3 years, and I was born at the end of 75. So, I mean, right at the end of 75. So if someone is born in 73, 72, that's a huge difference because you get that like, oh, I remember going to see Star Wars, with, my family and at the drive-in theater, whatever it was. So,
yeah, you just answered everything I was going to familiarize with.
Okay. Well, let's go back to what was your family life like? What did you have brothers and sisters, mom and dad? How were they?
Just at a glance, I would say my grandfather was an Air Force Canadian airman just after Korea. And they kind of were the nuclear family living out of, those steel metal bullet looking trailer homes.
Yes.
Yeah. So they lived in Gimli, Manitoba, which is where Leonidas from Delta 17 is from, by the way. And they had 3 kids. And my mom was the middle child, or sorry, the middle child. And it was just I wouldn't say Brady Bunch, but it was that era of the nuclear family, those kind of heavy Christian values versus, the patriarch stigmatized. I'm going to go win bread. You're going to make this kitchen spotless and take care of babies. Right. But it didn't work out. Eventually they both had to work.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, like my uncle, he went rebellious, ended up joining the army. My mom kind of drifted, and it was around that free love era of the 70s coming to an end, right? Like the 69 to 74 was still very much the Woodstock love era, I think. So yeah, I met my dad. Life goes on. But yeah, they divorced. I grew up under my mom and my grandparents for the most part. Not a very close connection with my dad, but I knew him through my life. And then, yeah, just, stuff like that. I think there's probably about, we got 34. So probably 30 of these guys have a similar background. Yeah.
So what about your, do you have any siblings?
No. So like I said, my mom was really young when she had me, like too young when she had me. My dad was probably too old to have been involved with that. So one and done, go to school. And my mom basically went from being a young teenager to into nursing college, work her ass off. And I had to go stay with my grandparents sometimes for a year at a time. So she could, scratch rent, tuition, and get herself through school. So she didn't have time for another kid ever. There was just no time to settle down again after that, right? And we didn't know I had severe ADHD at the time, and things like that were going on. I was a friggin' handful, man. I really was. He'd want another one of me.
That's because we called that being a kid back then.
Yeah.
No,
Some
my son and my oldest daughter both have it. My son is actually really bad,
yeah,
but at the same time, you know,
yeah.
the
It's
diagnosis is thrown out way too. And I'm not saying you're not, because, but
no.
yeah, like, yeah,
I was the same way. I didn't get mine diagnosed till after we got my son diagnosed, and then when we sat down with the actual psychiatrist and went through it all, he was like, "Okay, it was like this, and that's why you never got it." I was like, "That explains a hell of a lot." And ever since then, I've been really actively involved in the readings and things like that. But absolutely correct. This is one of the most common things you'll ever find out about a person is ADHD. It's like, do you sweat when it's hot? Yeah, and I have ADHD. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people, yeah. You bring up Star Wars, and everyone's telling you like, I remember seeing Star Wars. I remember seeing all three. Like, and I want to be like, fuck all you guys. I didn't see any of them till Return of the Jedi. No.
So my thing with Star Wars was, you're right. I mean, being that age, being tied right away to being in the backseat of that car, watching Luke Skywalker take Princess Leia, you know, he's gonna kiss her, right? Swinging across that trench, and it left an impact that you never forgot. But when you went as a toy kid, and that's what I was a kid that was, they were throwing toys at me to keep me busy, right? Suddenly, Star Wars was awesome right up till the first GI Joes came out, right? And GI Joe was awesome till comics, right? It's a transition of toys. Star Wars was
Yeah. All right. So being a little bit older than me, do you remember like the first toys you had? Now you were an only child. Sounds like you were with your mom and grandparents mostly.
yeah.
Do you remember like the first toys that you really played with? Again, it seems like a lot of people in our age bracket really go to adventure people. But you're in Canada.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I forgot to. Let's back it up a little bit. Where are you from, and where did you grow up? I guess I should have asked that.
Okay. So
This is what happens when you know someone and you forget that. Hey, not everyone knows this.
that's true. That's true. Okay. That's fair. Yeah. So I was born in Scarborough, Ontario, which is a sub district of Toronto, where my team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, play. But we moved to Kingston. I was raised in Kingston.
I think it's 1964, right?
Was that the
I think
Leafs?
1964.
Yeah, we're right on that break, man. It's any day now. Pardon me. So
I'm a Red Wing fan, so this
no,
kind of a
I'm
little rivalry.
You're a Red Wing fan. I'm a Toronto fan. I'm also very much a realist, and yeah, the Toronto thing is not that committed. But yeah, no, I consider myself more of an Albertan. I spent almost 20 years in Albertan, like in Alberta, after I was an adult, and it's a very different kind of culture. It's like how the Americans, New York is very different than, say, a Montana or Texas, right? So it was kind of that culture shift, and I just really embraced the West. Stayed there for 20 years, and that was, every time they bring up Ontario, I'm like, but.
Rad Toys Galaxy says, "Oh, a fellow Canadian, you're about an hour and a half from me."
Oh, okay. Yeah. We're about an hour and a half away from everybody.
I tell everyone all the time, I'm closer to Canada than Ohio.
That's fair.
A lot closer. Like, not even like kind of closer, a lot closer.
We talked at Joe Fest, and I was like, man, like, if it wasn't just so much more convenient to fly than to drive, I was like, man, I would have done a road trip and picked up Punk on the way if I had known. But it was just one of those things where, okay, we're that far.
I would have been like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy, I enjoy the idea of a road trip and long drives because I drive all the time. Sometimes you just get to the point. Now, getting somewhere is usually not that bad. It's when you're getting home. Although the drive home this time wasn't that bad.
No, and you know what? I prefer to drive alone because you can crank your music, you can talk to yourself like an insane person, you can swear at people, they cut you off. But the obligation of keeping someone entertained for 16 hours in a 2-seat car, it would weigh heavily after about 8 hours. You'd be like,
The other thing is, no matter how good of friends you are with someone, you don't know that person till you drive across country with them.
Oh my God, that's true. Yeah.
And I flew to Arizona and I drove home with a buddy of mine back when he was an ASU, so we graduated together. We're great friends. I was like, this is the absolute worst.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't sleep while I was driving. It was his car, so he was anal about it. Like, dude, you fucking know how I drive. All right? You know how I drive. You agreed to this, all right? I've driven your car many times, all right? You know how I drive. So it's different. And it's way different when it's not your kids and you can tell them just, hey, shut up. I will leave you on the side of the road and have your mom come pick you up. All right. So let's jump back to where we were. So what were the first toys you remember like playing with as a kid?
So you mentioned the Adventure, the Little People, the Fisher Price. I remember the Sesame Street ones, just peg and play.
Yeah.
Sesame Valley, I had the Sesame Street set. You know, I could fold out Mr. Hooper's store and all that stuff, and I had a place for Oscar. I had that stupid tree that, you know, would open up. I had the barn. I had all that stuff. And then all of a sudden I had Star Wars. And those were now the dioramas for Star Wars right away. Like I was already an expert at age 5 at posing figures in war with Stormtroopers and Luke Skywalker, right? So that was pretty much the first ones I played with. And then I was Stretch Armstrong. I had one of those. I destroyed it.
I remember that thing. I never had one though.
Yeah. The $6 Million Man, where you could look through his back of his head through his eye.
Oh, that was such a cool that was such a cool idea, man. That was like, it was unique because you didn't like. It was just something. It was basically a viewfinder.
Yeah.
And
the play factor alone, I think, was way ahead of its time too. I mean, like, not only did you have some sort of stuff going on in that head, but his wrist, if you remember, you could peel that flesh back and there would be a computer panel under the skin, right? Because I know that because I pulled it clean off. But I mean, it was there. I appreciated it.
Well, everything with the $6 Million Man, because when you played with him, like you had watched it. So even though you probably completely destroyed the sound, you made that sound whenever he did anything. Like that was like when you think back, like you would watch that, and even when the Bionic Woman came out, like you would imitate that. Yes. I remember always laughing because there was one episode where he lifts it up, like this big boulder falls down, and he lifts up his arm, and it smashes on his arm and bounces off because it was and as a young kid, I go, wouldn't that still crush his shoulder? Like his whole body isn't bionic. The rest of his body would have been. I mean, the whole premise is like that he explodes, right? So he has this stuff rebuilt, but everything else would have been just like the boulder would have crushed his body.
I mean, I'm good on you for picking up those things. That's why most shows get ruined for me in movies. Like I'll pick up on that and be like, but the logic is right there.
We'll get to your logic later on in this episode.
Well, no, you just gave a good example about it. You were just like, bionics be damned. Let's talk about that shoulder, right? Like
that was as a kid. Like, what the hell? Like, I don't even know. It's not like I looked at everything like that, but you know, like Wonder Woman. How did they not see her flying in an invisible plane?
Wonder Woman. The thing I associated always was that spin that Linda Carter used to do.
Yes.
Right, but the other one that really, where you talk about sound effects ruining it for you almost, was Transformers.
Oh,
trying to do that while you're mangling a toy in its first run of Transformers didn't work out. It was never that fast.
Optimus Prime you could pretty quickly because the legs flip down, feet, arms out, over, until you had to put the hands on. You're trying to get them out.
Yeah, I got the police car Ferrari at the time. I can't
remember. I never had that, but I can only imagine.
Pursuit, I think. Was it Pursuit or somebody? I can't remember what they were called.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Someone will tell us in the chat, I'm sure. All right, so you remember seeing Star Wars.
Yes.
And you said that kind of got you, because Star Wars stories, they come out right away. It took a little bit of time. So Sunstreak was my fave. Christina was saying, or Christine. Why did I say Christine? It is Christine, right? It is Christine Mendoza.
Mendoza.
But Christine, that's what keeps throwing me off.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Hi. Sunstreak was her favorite.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that was the yellow sports car, not Bumblebee, but like
the Empty World is saying red alert. And the Empty World, I don't think that I've ever seen you post here. So thank you very much. And if you have, Matthew Matson will tell me and be like, they're posting all the time. And I'll be like, good Lord. No, Sideswipe was the red Lamborghini. Because Sideswipe was my favorite because I love the Lamborghini Countach.
Okay.
And I never had this, believe it or not.
It was a cartoon we got. For some reason, I could get Transformers at my grandparents' house every Saturday or when it was on, but never
Sunday during church. Don't ask me how I know.
That was why I was going to hell for that. But no, but Joe, I could never get Joe. Like the network in Kingston just were not picking up G.I. Joe.
Because this is a real American hero. Even though technically Canada is America.
Well, I mean, all our Joes came with Canada stickers over yours. Like, it was over. Like, honestly, you could find them and they'd have Canada written.
All right, so we are gonna, we're gonna talk about that in a second there because I find that interesting. Yeah. So you said you were into Star Wars until G.I. Joe came along.
Yeah, G.I. Joe was the hard, cold water splash. Like, oh my God, like this is my life now. Hello, next 5 years of collecting toys. Just fill out this list, hand them the back of the box and go check them off.
Yep. Right? And again, I remember where I was the first time I saw a commercial and, what I was playing with, where I can remember it vividly sitting there, what I was playing with, how it was set up, turning around and asking my dad if I could get one. And I don't know why, I mean, it would have been either late 81 or 82. Because I don't remember if they were showing commercials before they came out, but it would have been right around there. So, I mean, you're talking about someone who is, probably 6 because, like, again, my birthday is at the end of 77.
Yeah.
And it was from that moment of getting that first one, it changed like that. I mean, I had Transformers, I had He-Man, different things like that, but it didn't matter. Like, it all came back to G.I. Joe, which I think is probably noticeable in what the majority of my collection is. So what was it about G.I. Joe that you gravitated to?
So, I mean, at that point, I had no idea my grandfather was even close to being in the military or my uncle. Like, I just wasn't connected to what they went to do at work, right? There wasn't a military sense. What was driving me about G.I. Joe was Star Wars. Every time I'd play with them, I'd be like, I'm going to shoot you. And you'd have to raise the arm and boo, boo. And sword fight, right? And G.I. Joe was bringing this to the game.
Yep.
And it was just groundbreaking to me. And then they were like the guys I would see on TV in the movies. Like my grandfather would watch a John Wayne Green Beret movie.
I love Green Beret. My favorite John Wayne. I said it the other day, like, my dad is a huge John Wayne fan. Yeah. And so Green Berets is like the one John Wayne movie that I went out and I bought on DVD. I'll watch it. Because that was one of the first, I believe it was the first pro-Vietnam movie.
That was it. It was a propaganda piece. And John Wayne attached, right? And if you were following that at the time, like that, that's just kind of what Hollywood did for every kind of war, right? So,
yeah. Then I'll never forget the end where the one guy that befriends the little kid when he gets killed at the end.
Oh,
walking and just gets, and then John Wayne has to tell him.
I honestly don't remember how that movie ended, and I think because what had happened was I was probably playing with my Joes or something in the living room. My grandfather was watching this movie, but there's a scene where one of the guys trips a punji type trap.
That's the last guy. So that's the guy that he befriends this kid. Like, because he's in the camp and he has his dog. I think the dog gets killed. And that he like befriends him. And every time they come back from a mission, he's like looking for him and they're walking back and he trips one and he gets swung up against the bungee sticks. And when
That's
he
it.
comes back, he runs up to John Wayne. I forget what his name is. I think he's a colonel in it. And he has to tell him that like he's not coming back or whatever.
Right.
And I believe that's pretty much how it ends.
Doesn't John Wayne kind of look like, I know the uniform is a uniform, but I feel like that had to have been some of the inspiration behind the Falcone character for the Joe line, because that movie was
Yes, I would. If you asked me like what was the inspiration, I would say that was John Wayne.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a really crappy sculpt. That's all.
It was not good.
Well, that's got to get mentioned at least once a day, right?
But they are fixing it, right? They are fixing it. So Todd C is asking, he must have missed the beginning. How old is Crow? He said he's retired, but he looks ripped like a 30-year-old. But your workout regime. What is your workout regime? So how old are you again?
No. So when I was in the military, I was really fit. Like, I wouldn't say I was in GI Bros League, but I was coming in under those kind of details as far as definition and a workout routine, because the Army made you do it, right? I broke somewhere around 40, 43. I just couldn't work out as much. And now I don't do anything except daily chores of lifting boxes and pushing mowers. And so I call it let it ride, right? I think I'm just withering away now from good body. So, but thanks for the compliment.
GI Bro just got upset that someone else complimented someone else's how they look, and he's on his way to the gym right now with a protein shake. It's like, fuck this. Hey, Rich, hey, they can't even see you, so don't be that upset that they called someone else ripped, all right? I ain't joking, man. That guy, like, there's no way he has a shirt with sleeves on.
Oh, man. And the way he stood out, like, there's no getting around. Joe Fest was filled with all body types of all types.
Yeah.
Right? But he stood out. Like, it was like, hey, you know what I do while I'm looking at my Joes? Push-ups. All of them.
Someone comes over his house and they're like, why are all your action figures on the floor? Well, I can't do push-ups and look at them up there.
Yeah. He opens boxes while he's doing like sit-ups.
He has no TV stands or anything because all his TV's on the ground, so he can do push-ups while he's watching TV.
It all makes sense, right? We've got him figured out.
I don't think he's watching because he hasn't made a comment yet. But he's gonna go back and watch. He's gonna be fuck those guys.
He popped by earlier, I think, but it was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, he popped up. He popped in earlier. All right, so you see G.I. Joe. Now, I always like asking people that live in different countries, what were their toys like? And what I mean by that is, in Canada, it's not that much different. But the real American hero is, to me, even though America is two large continents, we're not America. We are the United States of America. But saying we're a United Stadian kind of sounds dumb. I think we talked about this at Aaron's house, right?
Yeah.
But how was the G.I. Joe's packaged for you? Were there other toys packaged differently than what we had?
No, I look back at it and it was exactly what you guys were getting. I think it was the same principle as what we kind of see now, where maybe we didn't get them at the same time, right? But the boxes were the same, the stuff inside. The only things that were changing for us was our decal sheet, because you remember you used to have to put your decals on your vehicles.
Yes.
Right? Ours had Canada. And
I know.
Right? Yours had the US. And every now and then you'd hear like some kid got the US version because his parents jumped across the border. And that was special. Like that's right out of the cartoon that I couldn't get because my cable network, like that was the big thing. We could see the commercials and the cartoons and the commercials, but we couldn't get the show. You had to have special cable. Like you remember how cable was tiered? With rich kids had all the channels, all 22 of them, right? So,
I didn't have cable for the longest time.
No, me neither. UHF, like dial static.
Yes, UHF. UHF was always better because it seemed to have a better signal than anything in the VHF.
Now I'm feeling 50.
Christine Mendeza says, does anyone remember those die-cast army men with moving parts and painted? Are you talking about Eagle Force? The little 2.5 inch figures. They
Oh,
were gold.
yes.
So
Oh,
Fresh Monkey Fiction does. They do them now. That's
I-
what Eagle Force is. Fresh Monkey Fiction does it, except they do them in the 4-inch modern. We've talked about those numerous times. Those things were weapons. Those things and the WWF wrestlers, the big rubber guys, those were weapons.
yeah.
If I went into a war right now, I might take both of those things.
Yeah. If you've never been hit with a Lou Albino figure arm across your jaw, you don't know.
So, if Matthew's watching, I bet he'll remember. So we were talking about it. We're talking about the Eagle Force, the little 2.5 inch metal figures. I had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And someone goes, I hated those. And we're like, dude, no one hated those. He goes, I just remember that I remember walking into my house and it was snow out. Like it was snowy out, like a foot of snow, and it fell and it went right down.
Oh,
and
yeah.
With it being that small, and he goes, I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And we all were laughing because we're like, oh, I could fully see, because those things were just sinking. Like they were.
I'd heard these mentioned so many more times before this, but when Christine described them in that sequence with the metal, right, and then you kind of added to it, all of a sudden I remembered I did have, and what I hated about them, I only had one. Like in Canada, for some reason, I got gifted one on a birthday or something. I was like, but there's nothing for him to fight. He's not compatible with anything. He just is. And it wasn't anything. And I remember the paint flaking off that thing.
I don't remember.
I'm rough with it too, though.
They were. I mean, again, like someone said, let's make 2.5 inch metal, die-cast metal figures and give them to kids. What could go wrong? Oh, hey, by the way, we're also making lawn darts.
Remember, one of my generation is why Boba Fett couldn't get a spring-loaded launcher, right? Because somebody.
That is true. All right, so the G.I. Joe, they came with different sticker sheets. Now, in the past, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years, I ordered a bunch of parts to not to complete, but to replace broken parts on my original headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
And when the flag for the headquarters came, it was this. And let me just tell you, the flag was one thing that was all ripped up and I really needed, and I did not realize that it was a Canadian flag, because I think on the picture it had the other side, which was the G.I. Joe logo.
Oh. And
I was like, son of a bitch.
I've heard these disappointing stories before. And I mean, we're very polite people up here in Canada. We have a lot of compassion. We feel bad for you, because it was the opposite for me. If we got the U.S. one, it'd be like, look how different this is, eh? Oh, this hoser is going to be, he's going to be unique, right? You guys.
All right. So you fall in love with G.I. Joe because they articulate. Because now you said that was basically your love for 5 years as a kid. But did you play with any other toys? Collect anything else? Now we didn't collect at that age. We bought and we played with. I think Johnny Reno is the only person. Johnny Reno and the Savage Land. They were the only people that their parents were buying one to collect and one to play with.
Yeah, no, I remember. I can be very specific. I personally bought and collected individual figures with my allowance whenever I remembered to save enough to do it. The rest of the time it was a gift for birthday or Christmas, but everybody knew. I forgot to mention Lego was on that list, but it dropped off too when Star Wars and Joe came. But everybody knew the presents Ryan wanted was G.I. Joe. Like Little Crow. They called me Crow back then too. But yeah, G.I. Joe was it.
Wait, did they really?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, that would be cool. Like, G.I. Bro is still here, but I think he missed a part because he didn't say anything about his push-up routine while
All right, man. He was probably eating like an entire field of vegetables and just watching.
He has to turn off Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger long enough to watch YouTubers. No offense, that is a very motivating movie, or mockumentaries, I think they call it.
I feel like G.I. Bro, like, he must jump rope with like steel cable or something, right? Like barbed wire or steel cable.
Oh yeah, barbed wire. I said get barbed wire. His hand. Look at his hands next time we see him at Joe Fast. Like,
yeah, no, you're right. Too handsome of them to have done that.
All right. All right. So G.I. Joe, but you didn't really. There wasn't anything else after that. No Motu. Turtles. You would have been too old for Turtles, right?
So Turtles came right around that age where you're like noticing girls a lot stronger and starting to get a little bit more self-conscious about what people saw your interests in, right? And that was also my transition into comics too, because the thing I learned about Turtles first through the comics, and they were these ultraviolet black and white, kicking ass, stabbing ninjas, violent as hell, and then. As you got older, all of a sudden there were this goofy pizza slinging, beat up robots kind of thing, right? But yeah, I could never get into them, and a lot of it came from. I think I was more like everybody else, like the types you kind of laugh at, where scale was too important to me. If they didn't size perfectly beside my Joe, they had no place there.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
And Tony is asking, Crow, are you older than me? Yes.
Automatically, I'm going to say yes. I don't even care.
Tony's about to hit 50.
Okay. Yeah, but just by that much, Tony. You're wearing it better than I am, bro.
I don't know about that. All right. So as you age, like we all do, it sounds like you kind of got out of playing with toys and moved on to that next chapter, which is usually at the end of middle school going into high school.
Correct.
Did you ever stop? Did you stop playing with toys and collecting toys, or did you always have them?
No, there was for some reason I thought that was something would pass over the years. I would eventually go, yep, no connection whatsoever with this kind of medium in my hand, like toys, models, things like that. That never left. Like even when I said I'm done with Joe, it wasn't long before I bought like a Wetworks figure from the McFarlane line early or something. Like I transitioned back into buying toys. And then when I was like, no, even I don't want to collect that again, tabletop gaming were essentially just toys you put on a table and rolled dice about. So I went right into that, right? So that little obsession about collecting little peoples just never left.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as you got into high school, what else did you get into? You said you got into comic books, which I find a lot of people that I talk to, they get into comic books because it is that easy. It's easier to hide, and even if they don't have to, you're reading, right? It's not as dorky or immature. I guess I don't want to say dorky, immature. You're not really a dork if you're collecting toys at our age. You're immature. At least that's how the perceived look at it, right?
No, the other thing I was very into was that was the age where I started really becoming a fan of Joe Strummer and Mick Jones from The Clash, and I went right into rock and roll and punk music and that whole lifestyle, right? So once you drop into those kind of subcultures, you're not really talking about toys as much as other things completely, right? So
yeah, I always had my toys out. I can't say I always had them out, but I never like packed them away for any reason other than I was doing other things. I mean, I still have my my Tomahawk and my Night Raven with a screw in it, and I literally drilled a little hole, put a screw in it, and hung it from my ceiling. And they were there all the time. So I would have toys out all the time, but I didn't go collect anything. But again, when you're a skateboarder at that age, like you're already the outcast. So the other skateboarders coming over aren't making fun of you for having your G.I. Joe figures out.
And that was really it. Like, this was about a little bit of social identity protection at that age. For me, I was like exactly what you just said. Like, I'm into this culture and it doesn't look that way, but I still had a few toys, but I made sure the toys I had were tied to the comics I were collecting, because the comics was that one concession I was telling people, this ain't going anywhere. This is part of who I am. And that was almost respected about me. But the role-playing games that went with those comics, I saw somebody mention, Christine actually mentioned Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Marvel had one too. In that age, we were getting into that quietly as well, right? But
Yeah.
how do you had to balance those things to just keep those insults at bay.
But collecting, like, again, picking up toys that go with your the comics you're reading, it makes sense. It's buying. I don't collect baseball cards, but I love the Detroit Tigers. I try and get all the Detroit Tiger cards or the Red Wing. It's like you were trying to do stuff because it all encompasses, because now you're collecting something. You're collecting something, even though you don't really realize you're a collector at that point. So
Right.
It makes sense to tie something like that. The reason why people have like baseball bats and mitts and the old little baseball caps that you would try and baseball.
I remember those little things. Yeah, the
Yeah.
plastic ones, the battery pack.
Yes.
Yeah, no, and I mean, if you do the reading on ADHD, it's all like collecting in general is one of the most common things that ADHD guys do, because it's a method of control over something that normally you don't control. It's a little world, it's an organization, it's a shelf display, but that control is like a dopamine for us. So it all made sense that I would collect the entire life, right? Like something.
Yeah, and like I mean, I mentioned it before. Like, I would keep everyone's skate decks, everyone's skateboards, and they weren't new or in good shape, and I would hang them on my wall. I was a collector, not realizing that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
People just thought like, oh, he just, hey, give it to Lauren or give it to Larry. I didn't go by Lawrence then. Give it to Larry, and he's going to keep them, and that's what I did.
And you're old enough, and I think Matt Matson and Tony confesses to being old enough. Like, think about when you're at high school, when somebody would open their locker, like the differences between lockers through identities. Like, people would collect postcards, for God's sakes, and tape them up, right? There's somebody's collecting something at every stage of their life if they're disclosed to it. So
yeah, and I usually say, like, if once you're a collector, you're always a collector. You're collecting something at some point in life.
I think so.
At every point in your life, you're collecting something, whether it be something small like spoons or glasses, or you're as hardcore into stupid toys as we are. But yeah. All right. So throughout high school, what else did you do? You got into music. You said you kind of got into the punk scene.
So I also got into the associated, trouble that a teenager with, the all the things you were warned your kid was going to become. I started becoming. I was stealing. I was going out drinking. I was doing drugs. I was hanging out with people I really shouldn't be hanging out with, and getting into fights with people that I shouldn't be getting into fights with, and things like that. So after a while, that just kind of closed some books for me, because I wasn't good at school either, right? Like, couldn't focus, couldn't get better than B was an amazing grade for me, right? B was like, holy crap, you're an Einstein. C was my average. So after all of that, I just hanging out with people, mall ratting, hanging out with the skaters and watching them go down the empty mall parking lot on a Sunday. That kind of stuff was kind of my life for most of high school, right? So
okay. So no sports, nothing like that.
Oh, lots of sports, but I mean, nothing that went anywhere, right? Like, school sports was fun, but after school, I wouldn't participate, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I tried out for a football team. I got through second cuts, and I was like, man, school doesn't want me to play for them. And that was the end of it, right? Like, you remember that talk?
Say hi to Lunchbox Killer. Oh, what's happening? Punk with Toys, Crusty Old Crow. How we all doing? Everyone's doing good so far. At least I hope so.
So
I'm sorry. You and your like school doesn't want me. Man, school doesn't want me. Did you ever think maybe it's because you were scrawny and sucked at football?
And wouldn't shut up, wouldn't sit still, wouldn't take it seriously. Now there's a list.
What about hockey? I mean, you're from Canada, right? I thought you guys were born with the stick in your hand.
Yeah, no, that's fair. My mom screamed. But no, it's hockey I liked because it was a connection I had with my grandfather.
Okay.
Like we watch hockey together. So I grew up with a very, un-Canadian way of cheering for both Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. And if you know hockey,
Oh my God.
right? So Edmonton Oilers, all of them. And if it was a Canadian team, I was behind it, right? When it came to playing hockey, I was really good at goaltender. I was pretty okay at defense, and then I was crappy everywhere else, right? So, because I couldn't skate very well. I wasn't very strong in my ankles, wasn't coordinated with turning. Me turning would usually be thundering into the boards and pretending like I did it on purpose somehow, right?
What are you talking about playing defense? Like you have to be skating backwards all the time.
Skating backwards when you're a kid, playing minor hockey is actually easy because it's just doing this, right? That whole, just like skiing, just doing that, and you go back and you hold your stick in front of you, and then you stop and you hit the guy. Like that was it. That's about the extent of my hockey experience at that age, right? So for offense, you had to pay attention to what is an offside pass? How did you get offside? What the hell's that blue line all about? And watch to make sure nobody else crossed it before you. Like it was too complicated for me. And that was it.
Certain things I never thought of. The guy that I drove back from Arizona with, he played hockey his whole life. And so he would get on his rollerblades and go out when we were skateboarding just so we could hang out. And he was a big guy because he played football too. He's a big, burly guy.
Yeah.
And he'd get on his skates and you're just like, holy shit, dude. And he's like, oh, I can skate better backwards. Because he was a defenseman. And I didn't understand. And you'd see, and you're just like, damn. So, I never tried playing hockey, but my buddies got into it. So everyone wanted Derek to play with them because he was on travel hockey teams. So he was really good. But like, I didn't see it because I wouldn't go to ice rinks with him. He started coming out just to rollerblade, and, just to hang out with us. And he fucking just like fly around like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. The hockey culture up here, I mean, I won't deny it is ingrained in our culture, like most growing up.
It'd be bad if you tried denying it.
Yeah, but the thing is like it's one of those things where you have to have a lot of money if your kid's gonna keep playing after about age 15, right? And the position I wanted to play was goaltender. So me outgrowing my equipment was not my family could take, right? So they kind of cheered when I said, okay, I'm done with hockey. They're like, good. Oh, that's too bad, son.
Yeah. Our daughter was good enough to be on team for gymnastics, but she didn't want to. She just wanted to go in once or twice a week, do some flips, learn. She wanted to learn stuff, but she didn't want to be on a team. Mm-hmm. And if she would have wanted to be on the team, I would have found the way to come up with the money.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie. I was thrilled that she didn't want to because that's a lot of money. And that's gymnastics. Like, there's very little equipment. It's just a lot of, it costs a lot, obviously, but so does hockey because you got to rent out the rinks. It's not like basketball. All you need is a basketball. Baseball, you need a bat and glove and a ball.
Yeah. My biggest sport, the one that I hated the most, because it's like we're talking about, like if the kid shows an interest, that must mean they want to do it, right? Like that interest means go for a parent. So they found how much I loved swimming. Like I was like a fish in the water. I learned how to swim fast and I was a good swimmer. So they put me in competitive swimming, which was like getting up at 6 a.m, going to a pool full of chlorine. And I couldn't keep goggles on my eyes, so I'd show up at school at 8 with like vampire eyes, like up because the chlorine made my hair all stiff, and the shower didn't get it out. And I reeked of bleach almost because that's what chlorine smelled like. And they're like, time for your fundraiser. And we're like, what's the fundraiser? Oh, you swim laps and you go door to door to get people to fund your laps, right? What's the average? 2 to 500. I'm like, so much fun, man. Like, that's what my parents did. Like, my mom and my grandparents did as soon as they found out I liked swimming, right? So I was careful not to show them too many other interests after that.
Oh my god. That's actually pretty damn funny.
Yeah.
I should keep my interest away.
Well, that's why I showed them comic books. Like, yeah, drown me in comics. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I wish my dad would have bought me more skateboards. All right, so you go through high school. Did you graduate?
I did.
Okay.
Not strong, but I mean, I made the mark and I made it on time. In Canada, like in Ontario specific.
Well, SCS Doc says, yeah, I had to do a swimathon. That sounds awful. That sounds like torture. I'm sorry.
Swimathon sounds like a party. It's like a movie-thon, and but when you get there, it's just these kids just flopping through the water and dying, right? Pull me out, coach. You only did 179. What a failure! Get out. Like how much money did you raise?
It just sounds miserable, like the things that like all the SEALs go through when they're training for buds and everything.
Yeah. I can see the
even worse if you don't make it through buds and you fail. Like
yeah. I see Chris states it like tournaments every weekend. Yeah. You want to know what makes you suck on Friday at school and everybody else is looking forward to Friday at school? It's knowing Saturday morning you're going to a tournament.
Well, like everyone else is excited to go swimming on the weekend, and you're like, no, I have to go swimming. Yeah, we're all going swimming. No, I'm going swimming. You know that crazy person when you're at like, because I grew up in in condos. So there was a swimming lap for our pool. There's always one crazy person first thing in the morning. She lived in my court too. She would do laps. Like I couldn't imagine being a kid and being like, you get to do that. What?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the best they do, right? You would think if you wanted to make it enticing to kids, you could put little colorful paintings at the bottom of the pool or something. But no, you literally spend like the next 2 years of your lives swimming and counting tiles and looking forward to when the tile. Where's that one white tile? There it is among the black. There. Oh, that feels great to pass that. Like, there's no satisfaction to swimming laps outside of getting cut, right? So,
yeah, I wouldn't have told my parents what I like doing either at that point. I would never admit to liking anything, even a little bit, if it would have to do with like being put into a torture rack of doing it over and over.
Yeah. Thankfully, my mom let me quit after a while. Like after that, she kind of just saw I was just defeated. I was like, I can't do this anymore, man. Like, let me go smoke cigarettes with my friends.
CS Dog says we did no rules water polo after practice to have fun. I know that kind of sounds like fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
yeah. I can see it. I remember the games. The problem on my swim team is actually our coach. If anybody followed swimming, because nobody does, her name was Vicky Keith, and she's actually was in the Guinness Book of World Records in the 80s to early 90s for swimming the Great Lakes, right? So so that was her. She was my swim coach, right? So it was just like, yeah, you guys talk about playing water polo games. Every now and then she'd let us do that, like once a month. You're showing up 8 times a month, right? Like, so.
44D2 says the upside of swimming is not drowning.
Fair point.
3-star. Here's to swimming with bow-legged women. All I know is if you show up at Club Tarkin next year at Joe Fest, we're making you swim laps.
Yeah.
We're gonna count your laps while we enjoy the techno party going on, and I don't like techno, so.
White tubing is a weird hoop to jump through, man.
All right. So after you graduated, what did you do?
So I I had it pretty hell bent. I was going to go work for Marvel or Image Comics. I was going to move down to either San Diego or New York, and I was going to crack in as a writer or an artist because I was actually really good, but not comic great, penciler, and I
Okay.
had imagination, right? But I went through general arts and science at my first year at a place called St. Lawrence College, which is it's like our state college, that equivalent, like.
Okay.
Everybody gets in if you want to get in, but programs you're gonna have to compete for, right? Like that kind of thing. So I did that, and then I went into graphic design. But this was in an era where computers were just coming into the graphic design picture, and hand painting and like washing and all that other stuff was on its way out. So I kind of dumped a lot of money, worked like 3 jobs, dumped a ton of money, and then dropped out. That was it.
So what did you do after you dropped out? How long did you go for?
I did 1 year of general arts and science, 1 year of graphic design. In that, I spent most of that time in the pub drinking with my friends and skipping certain classes. And then I dropped out because it was a money pit that I was just feeding and not getting, I wasn't going to graduate. And then I worked the bar scene for about a year after that, got fed up and joined the army. That was it.
Lunchbox Killer wants to know, did you do diving boards? Do a full gainer?
No, that would have required far more coordination than just doing this, right? Like getting the breathing was about as coordinated as you get. To do flippy flips and everything, I'd be in a chair right now just talking to you with a straw in my mouth. That'd be it.
All right. So what year did you join the military?
So yeah, 97 is when I kind of just shipped off and went to basic training in Quebec, and that was the year. We were having a tough time in the family, and I was going through a real bad kind of, oh my God, this is my path. I have to work at bars just to pay rent. And I had cockroaches in my apartment, which drove me absolutely nuts, right? Like just that kind of a low rent apartment. And to have cockroaches was such a movie thing. It was a sign of disgust. Because you remember, what was it? MTV had Joe's Apartment. Was it Joe's Apartment? The big movie? It was all about those cockroaches and having parties. And
I've never seen it.
yeah.
I know. That's not even a joke. I've never seen the movie.
Yeah, no, but then I knew about cockroaches and how gross they were at the time. So I was just like really down at the time. And I decided, I had no discipline. I had nothing going for me. So the family had mentioned the army a couple times. So I did it. And that was that.
Mr. Mad Gus says, smash that like button or Crow gonna have to do swim laps.
Yeah.
I do swim. Yeah.
Well,
He's gonna have to swim some laps. Reading is hard. Yes, please hit that, smash that like button, hit that subscribe if you haven't, and in the description, go like Crow. What are you at in subscribers?
What am I at for subscribers? I think I cracked 470 this week.
So you're coming in close to being able to get that first part of the monetization.
Yeah, it's been slow going. It'll happen, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that's getting there. It's just kind of fun to watch them go, no matter how slow or fast it goes. It's just, how it is. You wake up.
I know all too well.
So yeah, that's fun.
So go over there, go down in the description, and like Crusty Old Crow on Instagram and YouTube. Get him over 500. Maybe we can do that this Monday.
Hey, appreciate it.
I remember trying to get over 500 so long ago.
Yeah. It's one of those, right? It's fun. Like I said.
All right, so you decided to join the military. Now, are there different branches of military in the Canadian military? You guys have the Army. What do you have?
Just like you guys, we have an Army, we have an Air Force, and we have a Navy, and we have our Special Forces and our sub-branches from all of that. Everything that supports those 3 arms, right?
Now, how many people can you fit on your boat?
I'm sorry?
How many people can you fit on your boat for the Navy?
So we have I'm not Navy, so I can't speak to it. Is it a cruiser?
Do you have more than one boat?
What's that? We have
You
diesel subs. Is that
have what?
impressive?
How many
Diesel?
subs you have? What?
I think we bought what, 3? I have no idea. We are not. I wouldn't consider us a formidable force. We can patrol and we can work with you guys, but we would never have the same equals at all. You guys have $1 trillion defense budgets. We have a budget in flex that might buy you some vehicles in 5 more years. Like, it's just not the same conversation.
Again, I don't think that sounds like an arrogant American, but Canada doesn't need a huge military because they know the U.S. is never going to let anyone invade them because it would be bad for us. Like, it sounds awful, but it's very true. Like, they're never letting anyone invade you. Not to mention, you'd have to go through thousands of miles of Alaska to get on one side.
Yeah, the Northwest Territories, yes.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, it's a fair point, and that just kind of points out one of those little stigmas. And I'll mention it, right? You got to understand that Canada, in politics and everything like that, we're very aware of our relationship with the U.S., right? And what that dependency looks like. I mean, it's not a nipple in our mouth, but we definitely know who's pulling the heavy weapons, right? The problem is that on a global stage, Canada makes a lot of commitments to aid and to involvement, right? And so we have a military that can represent those commitments. And so a lot of the times we're following you in, representing ourselves on your mission, right? And that's kind of just what we've been. But prior to that, we were a well-known peacekeeping force. And before that, Canada had some of the baddest in World War II, right? Like, it's just how we were. We were just always small.
It's actually kind of funny that you say that because Christine says, my grandparents went to Canada to join in World War II before America was into it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true, right? Like, the U.S. took some convincing to go in there. When they were convinced, everybody wished they hadn't convinced them, but Canada was, we fell under the Commonwealth, right? So when Britain went in, we went in.
Yeah, it's really it's so interesting to sit there and, you know, when you read about and hear about how Hitler was like, he did not want to bring the U.S. until he had to. Like, he wanted to keep them out. And Japan was like, we need to bomb Pearl Harbor.
Wait, tiger, right?
Yeah.
That's called it.
And then you didn't even hit one aircraft carrier. Like you fucked everything up completely.
Yeah, your intel was bad. You did a lot of damage, but what you did was the same thing as what we saw in 9/11, right? You aggravated some who had access to more devastation than what you were going to bring, right?
And again, I know people get all mad. Shark Eyes, he goes, you really love pulling that. He was saying, we were going back and forth about how I was like what they say wrong. Like, they can't say no. Like, Australians cannot say no. They don't have the ability to just say the word no. No. Like they can't say no. And he's like, say this word. And we're like going back and forth. And I sent a picture of all the aircraft carriers. And I go, read that bottom one right there, 11. And he's like, you love pulling that one out. I'm like, might makes right.
Well, and that's what it's down to in the end, right? Might does make right to some degree. I
think it says we have 11, but I don't think they're counting the one in my basement. So there is that one too. All right, so you joined the Canadian Army, correct?
Yeah. So at that point, I was more aware of my uncle and my grandfather and my aunt's time in the military. They all kind of wanted me to go Air Force. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, but it turned out I was colorblind, so that ruled me out of flying anything. So I couldn't do that. So I went Army because I was like, screw flying above the fight. Let's go get in the fight. I want to go get in the fight. I had such stupid ideas of what the Army was going to look like, right? Thank you, G.I. Joe. You know,
it's not like G.I. Joe?
No, throughout my career, there's at least once every 3 days where I would sit back and go, huh, Clutch never had to do that with his shit. Oh, this sucks, right? Like I was always comparing it to what toy memory I had, right? And there's a lot of guys in the military that were like that too. Like they always
Well,
knew what they were talking about with Joe.
I've talked to numerous people that I have talked to on this show, along with just in general in the community, that said GI Joe was the reason why they joined. Joined there. Why do you think we have so many pilots? All because of fucking Top Gun.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of them didn't realize that it was a Navy, not the Air Force, or they realized they couldn't just join the Navy or the Air Force was closer. So either way, the Air Force and the Navy have a whole bunch of people that never flew planes, all because Top Gun, and they're like, we're going to be fighter pilots. Just like everyone's going to be a Navy SEAL. Probably not.
You remember when Top Gun came out? Well, I mean, they had recruiting stations open up, like actually like rent out the business next door to the theater so they could recruit guys coming out of that movie. Like there was a huge recruit drive after Top Gun to get into the Air Force. And yeah, a lot of disillusioned guys.
It's funny because I learned even more because after Top Gun Maverick came out, I started watching a lot of YouTube with pilots, whether it be Navy pilot or Air Force pilot, talking about the scenes and how realistic they were. And most of them, they were all saying like they're real, they're all real moves. Some of them, some of the stuff was too close together, but we also understand it's a movie. If you really had them, how far, they're never going to be in the camera shot. No. So they understood that. But a lot of them said, I saw Top Gun and I went down and then I enlisted in the Navy. There was one guy that said, I saw Top Gun, I went down and enlisted in the Air Force. Like, but it was a Navy movie. He's like, but I live down the street from an Air Force base. So to me, it was awesome to watch these planes. Probably didn't realize they didn't have the F-14s in the Air Force. It's a Navy plane. But either way, you're flying this you end up being a badass pilot that can do things that most people will never have the ability to even fly in one, let alone fly one.
Yeah, I mean, like it's been no secret that the skill sets for that movie that were on there, like these actors went through a lot of G-force training and all that other stuff. So it was pretty incredible stuff, like for that movie. I just had an issue with Maverick. With you said, well, thank God the F-14s are there, right? Well, 20, 30 years later, they still, ironically, still there, right where you got shot down. There's a whole bunch of these planes you're all familiar with.
Well, okay. I know how you are. One thing they said is they never said what country they were invading.
Yeah.
There is one or two countries that still use the F-14. And if they said, if you look at it, it is one that we are not friendly with.
That's not my point but I mean, like, it's fine. You believe me, there's military kit countries have been using that are pushing 40 right now. So I have no problem with that. It was the idea that they would land within walking distance of each other and be able to achieve a bound over to go get to these planes while this combat was still active. That would have been long over. It would have been nightfall by the time they got to the base. Okay.
So the scene where Rooster gets shot down when he comes back to save Maverick. Yeah. And when he gets shot down, that plane would have been miles away from him. And I noticed that right away.
Yeah.
The other thing was, as he was running on top of snow. Now, don't get me wrong. It's kind of like Hogan must pose at the end of wrestling. Cruz must run, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, the guy's fucking pretty much running on water in that. And then he runs him over, and then you're right. He's right by, like, those planes are flying so fast. I mean, I watched them because there's an air base right here. I see how fast they go. Like, I see how quickly the A-10s turn. They're a pretty slow plane compared to the other ones. But the fighter jets, like, you don't really see them. Like, we'll hear them every now and then. They make such a loud roar over when they go. But they're going miles within seconds.
Yeah.
So in Maverick, and I love the movie. I absolutely love the movie.
I don't mind it.
KJ running on water. That's what he fucking does, man. I don't care. I love Tom Cruise movies. I don't give a shit about his politics, how crazy he is. He makes damn good movies. All right.
Yeah, and I love JLS, by the way. JLS, thank you for showing up today. And I love how unrealistic. Yeah, man, I don't even have to read the rest of that comment. Yes, I agree. Right? These movies were meant to get the viewers excited. They did a great job. That's what makes these great. If you can get your audience excited, you've done half your job, right? Little dickheads like me will point out every little flaw with Top Gun and things like that, but we still.
I didn't. If I would have put on the bingo card Top Gun, I would not have thought I was going to get this. So congratulations to whoever has Top Gun on the bingo card for this Thursday with a friend. All right, so you join the Canadian military, or the Canadian Army.
Yeah.
And when we say Canadian Army, because obviously I want to, there is a difference, correct?
Yeah.
So other than we're different countries, but I'm assuming your skill sets and what you guys do, there are going to be differences between ours, correct?
Not really. It's the way our careers progress. Like, so I'm armored, and within the armored, you could be tanker or you could be reconnaissance. Like, it's just it falls under the title crewman,
Okay.
right? And in Canada, the longer you're in your career, we start at a position and work our way through that vehicle until we're commanding that vehicle. Then we're commanding a squadron of those vehicles, right? What I'm told about the way the U.S. kind of works is some of these trades. If say I fix doors on a Humvee, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my time. Like it's the progression's different, and I'm not sure I had that right in talking to guys, because while I've worked with a lot of Americans, it's not like you sit there and go, okay, so what happens with your career after this? It's not one of those talks. But yeah, that was it. So I was really into armored recce because that was the sneaky stuff, and I liked that. Like tanks look like big maintenance pigs, and they are. Like goddamn hate tanks with a passion, right? But they get the job done.
I'm told that like most tank crews, they pick the smallest people to be in tanks because there's not a lot of room.
Your driver and gunner for sure. Your loader, you'd want them actually one of your taller guys. With because in the Leopard, this is what I was trying to get at. I saw Ace on the broadcast last night that Travis had going on. And,
yeah, I heard you. I saw what you said when I told you we're talking about toys.
I pounded on that because I loved hearing Ace describe these things because I was picturing and I always wondered kind of his layout of the tank because I forgot he was armored. I knew he had been in the military, so he was kind of using that frame of reference. But yeah. You want your loader to be tall because he's got to see out the hatch and he's got to load the guns. But everybody else, 5'5" and under is beautiful, right?
Because I went to school with the guy. I worked out with him a few times, and he joined the military right after the Army, and he became a tank commander. And I remember I was talking to him, and I'm like, "How did you end up?" He goes, "I joined, and then that's where I got sent, and it ended up being that I was really good at being a tank commander."
And that's in the U.S.
Right? Yeah, in the U.S., yeah.
Yeah, see, we have to work our way up to a tank commander. Like,
oh yeah, no, he didn't just get it. He said but when he was, when he joined, he ended up on the tank crew or whatever, and then he goes, it just ended up that I ended up being a really good commander, a good tank commander.
So I was always wondering, did he have to start as a driver for that tank?
That I couldn't tell you. I think I would love to have more of a talk with him, about that.
It's a moot point, though. I mean, that's kind of just how it went, though, right? And I mean, our trades aren't that much different. If you're armored, we use different batches of vehicles. Our actual weapons are NATO standard, so we can swap ammo and all that. They're all pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you serve?
I did 25 years.
Okay.
25 years in the combat arms. It's one of those lots of fun stories, lots of everything, but my knees are shot, my shoulder's done. But it's that was it. And then after that I was completely lost. Yeah.
So now serving, did you do any tours overseas or anything?
Yeah. I did Kosovo. People remember Kosovo back at the time. right? So I did. That's how I spent the New Year's Eve of the lifetime of 1999 New Year's Eve. I was on a checkpoint searching for weapons and vehicles all night on the biggest party night of the world, and I'm like 22 years old, right? Like, fuck, you know. But yeah, after that, I think the only other tours I did, the rest were domestic ops and things like that. But I did Afghanistan twice. I was part of the reconnaissance group that went over during the 2004 election of Ahmed Karzai, which was the first prime minister elected to Afghanistan after the Taliban regime. And then I went back again in 2007. That was a much different tour. That was it.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. Well, that was it. That's still more than what most of us will ever serve. So, thank you. I mean, again, it's not for my country, but you do protect our hat, right? So, I thank you very much.
We protect Toys R Us from creeping back into your country.
hey, they're trying to get back in. I'll take Toys R Us, even they're a little bit higher prices than everything else.
Yeah.
You can let them all. You can let those snow Mexicans back over. So you served for 25 years. Is there a reason why you got out, or was it just time?
No. So the reason I got in is because I admitted I needed to be taught a few things in order. If I was going to survive being an adult, I needed somebody to give me some discipline and some resolve, right? And that's what I did it. But I remember my boss at the bar I was working at looked at me. He's like, "You, Harvey, you're not going to make it through basic training." And I was like, 25 years, motherfucker, right? Like, this is how it was going to go, like, in my head. So that was it. There was never a question. I was doing 25 of the day, and that's exactly how it went. And at all times, I kept thinking of him. Like,
wow.
Weird vendetta.
But, a lot of people do stuff because they're insulted and they need to prove something. And again, not a bad thing. I mean, it's not like you went and did something like someone said, "Yeah, you're never going to do heroin." You're like, "Fuck, you watch me." And next thing you know.
Well, I don't think I joined the army for any reasons different than other people. Like, yeah, I got to do the change, but I think all that psychology is you're trying to validate yourself whether you can do this thing, right? And if somebody tells you you can't, well, then you're going to do it, right? Like,
yes. Woody 222 says Crow, or as I refer to him, the eccentric one, is an amazing person and an even better friend. He's the type of person that will be there if you need him, and I believe him when he says it. Hey, I watched him jump into action to save Daredevil Dave while Daredevil Dave was dying, and Aaron was trying to sell him Powerade. Yeah. Like, motherfucker, like, at least give him the Powerade. Why are you fucking trying to sell it to him? You don't even take credit cards. That story will get worse and worse as we go on.
No, and now it's, it wasn't that Dave passed out. It was now Dave was going to drown from electrolytes.
It was strange because, like, Dave's down there and Aaron is like, this is Powerade. And then he goes into this whole tirade about, like, how awful the Valaverse figures are. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, the guy's fucking dying. Like,
yeah, I remember that. You remember he had like Pandora, and
he was trying to use Pandora's leg, her foot, to open up the Powerade with electrolytes.
So Aaron's at Dragon Con right now. I know he'll watch this in the replay, but facts, just facts. 3 stars in the chat. He would probably just tell you facts. He wasn't there, but he'll tell you.
And Daredevil Dave can't tell you because he was fucking dead.
Oh, who could rely on that? He was out cold,
yeah.
But Loki's there. Yeah. Well,
Loki was there.
True. Yeah, you can't leave Loki out of this, right? Loki was the guy that Dave was talking to.
Hey, 100% honest. Had Loki not been there, Daredevil Dave would have probably crashed and smashed his head on the concrete.
Or lost chiclets for sure, yeah.
Because he went back and Daredevil Dave, Crow grabbed Daredevil Dave. Why do we have to keep saying Daredevil Dave? Why can't we just say Dave? People know who we're talking.
Wait, is he a daring devil? Yes. Okay. Go.
But he had grabbed because you and I were in a conversation when you noticed I was lost. I'm like, I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to Joe Fest. Like if he fucking dies, sorry, Dave. I don't care. I'm going to fucking Joe Fest.
I looked at that, and that was the one thing I was after Joe Fest was done. And I'll say this to the guys: is like you start thinking about the first impression you made on everyone you just met, right? Because you've met them on YouTube, but now you've met them in real life. And I thought about the impression we made on Lawrence that day, and I was like, oh man, oh dear, like. People falling all over the place, just like dying, stand up till wee hours in the morning, and just I felt like we overwhelmed you, but you handled it so well.
No, not at all. I mean, it's not like I don't see people all the time, and
no, it was just suddenly have these like new faces to all the names you saw in the chat. It was like, look, man, flop one drops, right?
Well, you know what? It was gonna be overwhelming at Joe Fest anyway. I mean, that was everyone knows you. And again, I say that facetiously, but I mean, a lot of people knew who I was. I mean, which I don't know who they are. Like GI Bro, who literally just jumps in here. Like he knew who I was, and again, he introduced himself as Rich, not GI Bro, which I do appreciate. Hey, what was I supposed to do? Get in the way? Like, I'm not fucking helping. I mean, I guess I could have grabbed more Powerade with electrolytes.
Punk just stood there.
I mean, I have no medical training. Clearly, Crow did. And then, Loki had fucking, like, everything in his car, he said. And Aaron has the electrolytes. So what am I supposed to do?
No, and actually, you're the smartest one there because everybody knows it's like, I think something happens, no matter if it's small or big, everybody tries to get involved if they're that kind of a guy, right? You had 3 people hovering over Dave. Punk was the smart one going, 1, 2, 3, that's enough. Like, what do you want?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what do you need me to do? Because there's nothing for me to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, if Tony was there, you would think that he would do something. He's a paramedic, right?
So just so that it's fair over here, because I think it's we don't put enough light on this, right? It's not like Dave is an out of shape, collapsing guy. He had spent the entire day in the sauna of a car driving to Joe Fest, had eaten very little, and he's not a very large guy. His metabolism was into severe overdrive, man.
JLS, this is pretty close. Punk slowly backed away and disappeared into the bush.
The Homer, yep.
That's pretty much. I'm like, what a night that was.
How many times did we tell everybody, like, okay, no, seriously, I'm going to bed. Okay, I'm back out. No, I'm not. Yeah, okay, no, I'm going to bed. No, I'm not.
I'm surprised Aaron, I can't believe Aaron's neighbors didn't like yell or anything, because we were pretty loud out there for a while. I know he kind of like shoot everyone in.
Let's be clear. We weren't loud. It was me, Loki, and Aaron were loud. You and Dave talk at normal tones. We're yelling.
I don't think anyone's ever said I talk at a normal tone.
I didn't find you were yelling compared to the rest of us.
Okay. Yeah. No, it was an interesting night. We'll just say that. I mean, this is the first time you're meeting someone. Dave fucking dies. I find out the pitchman that fucking Aaron is.
I tried explaining this to my family when I came back there, because they're not used to me going to the States for anything unless I'm bouncing away with the military somewhere, right? So when I went to the U.S., it was a toy convention called Joe Fest. It was all about G.I. Joe. And I stayed at a guy from Atlanta's place. They're like, well, how long did you know him? Oh, about 1 hour a night over the last year. I've met him and talked to him. And he stayed at his house. Yeah, this is getting weirder of a conversation every time, right? But it was an interesting thing. Like, it was definitely once in a lifetime experience.
So, a 3-star says, I can't believe Missy didn't come out there with a shotgun. I could fully see Missy coming out with a shotgun too. Like,
She wouldn't need it, but she would. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, I could like, I've seen her, right? Like I could fully see her coming out, holding the shotgun, pointed down, like just ready. Like, all right, guys, that is enough.
She does have that demeanor too. When we've watched Erin's chats and she's been in the background, yeah, I could totally see a folded Remington under her arm talking. How long's your live going?
I thought it was funny. I knew he had dogs, so he talked about it. We didn't see the dogs till the next morning when we were leaving. He's like, "Oh, they're in the back." Like, what? Wait a minute. Where the fuck are the dogs at?
I had one warning about the dogs. It was just like, I have pit bulls. They hate humans. Don't go looking for them. I was like, okay. Right? And yeah, like, you totally didn't notice them if you didn't go to the back.
All right. All right. So you're in the military. We'll try and get back on track for a little bit. So, when did you meet your wife? Was it in the military or?
So my wife joined about a year and a half after I did. We were from similar regions, but not similar. But I met her probably, it was 2000, just after I got back from Kosovo. She was a medic, and I had been on a task to go put on some theater makeup and play as a casualty sim, and that's how we met each other. That was all.
Matthew, I have a track. It just we veer off it a lot, all right? If we were a train, we'd never get to our destination. I will say that.
Or you get the Northwest Passage, right? And you get locked in for years and ice. That's all. Just watched a whole bunch of videos on that.
All right. So you met your wife. How long were you guys together before you got married?
So we dated for about 6-7 months, and then I got posted to another base just like 2 provinces over. So I used to drive to go see her every weekend for 14 hours.
A province is like a giant state, people. Just so you know what a province is.
Yeah, giant is a giant's term. Yeah, you look at places like PEI, and it's not really giant, but it's still there.
How many provinces are in Canada?
Are we 11, 13? I would have to count on the map. You're going to expose me here, but yeah. So you got, let's see, British Columbia is located under Alaska. Then you go over to Alberta. Then it's Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, and then you have the Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. And I feel like I'm leaving something out, but I don't think I am. So about, what, 12? Was that 12?
How many states do we have?
What are you at? 51? Am I wrong on that? I can't remember.
Yeah, you are wrong. Yeah. We have 50 states. It's not like you just don't know. Like I the only reason I asked, I assumed it was just like we know there's 50 states. Although people will say there's not.
We learn it's 51 because we're kind of a state to you, aren't we?
Well, but we're trying to get rid of Ohio and take you as a state.
Right, and I would trade you Quebec for one Ohio.
Fuck
and
you.
Throw in part of Alaska.
I don't want fucking Quebec. Okay. Fuck the Montreal Canadiens. Fuck the people that want to speak French. Sorry.
Half my family is from Quebec, guys. I just think, they might want some nice maple syrup or something in this trade. I don't know. I want table, but we'll find out.
As D. Griff says, 48 in the Lower Continental. Yeah. I think a lot of people get confused that there's 51 because the District of Columbia, D.C., is considered its own state, but it's not a state. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and we forget about Hawaii sometimes. Like, like that up here. We've kind of, if it's not connected to you guys, we're like, remember, they own Alaska, right? That's theirs. Oh, in Hawaii, that's them. Like.
People don't realize how big Alaska is either.
Yeah.
It's like the third the size of the U.S.
Yeah, it's a big ice pack of nasty, but I mean, pretty dumb.
Yeah.
If you like.
All right. So you meet your eventual wife. Now, are you collecting toys while you are?
No. I to collect something in my first few years of the Army was hard because I was living in the shacks, which is just basically a room that you get to rent from the Army. But I was collecting comics. and I was still managing to religiously collect comics. So that was pretty much all I could do, right? You couldn't get figures, and the base towns in Canada that we live in, it wasn't like we had a lot of comic stores. They kind of stick you in the middle of nowhere because bases are noisy, right? Like you guys know, you've been to a few of yourself, the Air Force bases and whatnot. They're pretty loud. So they don't tend to be in big cities, right? So
We have an Air National Guard, so it's not like it's too bad.
okay. I was in a place called Wainwright, Alberta, and we had tank ranges out there. And people had lived in Wainwright their whole lives. And every month we would get people bitching on Facebook about, why does the Army have to be so loud? We're like, you moved here knowing it was an Army town.
You know, it's kind of funny that you say. I'm actually surprised we don't, because they build all the tanks here. They build all the tanks here, you know, miles away from where I live in Warren, Michigan.
Yeah, but I mean,
So I'm surprised there's not like a range for the tanks and the other armored vehicles.
I mean, if your area is too congested, the safety tank templating for a range like that is like quite like not tens of miles, like looking at a much bigger tens of miles, right?
I guess that makes sense.
But that real estate, yeah,
But they make the tanks here. I can tell you that much.
that's fair.
I try to buy them all the time.
The fine tanks you guys got up there, ours were 30
Well,
something.
You know, when I was younger, I remember my dad would always say, like, if there was ever World War III, we would be one of the first places attacked. And I was like, oh, because of Selfridge. My dad's like, no. I was like, what? And he goes, the whole auto industry is here. Not only do they make the tank plants, they can convert all the assembly lines to building anything if need be, right?
No, yeah.
And again, you're a kid. It's during that whole Cold War, you know, and your dad is a former, you know, he served 4 years in the Navy, you know, so like that's how he thinks, you know, during that Vietnam era.
But then your dad probably had a class on that too. There are classes we teach at like higher rank levels on like, you know, what would a siege of a city look like? What is the industrial? What is the outer periphery? What is the commercial and major routes? Like they talk about that stuff. So it makes sense. Yeah, you guys would be a big problem. So would we, because the St. Lawrence River would be a key asset to control if the states ever got it, right? It's a huge shipping route. So
Yeah. D. Griff says, I was based in Hill Air Force Base in Utah. Yeah, wasn't much around the base, mostly houses for people living off base.
Yeah.
I never really thought of it like, because again, like the Air Force Base, the Air National Guard base that we have, they house, you know, the A-10s. That's why, like, to me, like when I look at, I kind of did your thing, unfortunately, when I looked at the Rattler. As much as, you know, I like the way the HasLab looks, you kind of get skewed because you see them all the time, and you know that it's not supposed to look exactly like it, but it doesn't look exactly like the original. But at the same time, you're like, and maybe it's just because you're looking at the design of it from different angles. It's like it doesn't have the exact silhouette that makes it so, especially the nose. There's something about the nose on the HasLab that I see that I don't see, I guess.
that nose and that cannon are actually something that really needed to be kind of bigger to be more A10. But I mean, I commend Hasbro on that toy's original design, taking something like the A10 Thunderbolt, which was probably new at the time, and turning it into this VTO, like vertical takeoff.
Yeah. You don't even and again, as a kid, and even as you get older, you don't even realize like that. Oh, the Rattler really looks nothing like an A10. The front end does.
Yeah, that's what's
but after that, it's the same design of like an X, but it's or a cross, but it's not. It's not that.
The truth of it is that if you want to compare it, okay, let's take a Ramen Racer for example, and just take maybe the trunk off of that, because the cannon on the A10 is the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, right? So now scale that next to your Rattler when it goes and say, is that the size of a Ramen missing the trunk? Okay, they did a great job. It's just like the A10, but I don't know.
No, like I said, I understand why you feel the way you do about certain things, and we'll get into that but I also see, like, I see the Chinooks flying by all the time, and it's like, yeah, it really looks nothing like a tomahawk.
But the play factor is there, right? You take
Exactly.
recognizable design, and then they want to touch it. All right, we'll give you something close to that.
No, I get it, but yeah, it is weird when you see it. But so you didn't start collecting toys. You weren't collecting toys. You were collecting comics a little bit.
Yeah, more or less. Toys were I had in the shacks. I called it my action figure Hall of Fame. It was me and my buddy Jay called it that because there was like 4 whole figures on it, right? And I just remember there were like a couple of Wetworks, and then there was like some Spawn villain, and I think I had Marvel's Iceman. And that was it.
Darren wants to know about the A10, but how big are the patches for the A10s? We don't care about the Gatling gun. We want to know what are the patches like that come for the A10 pilots. God damn you fucking patches. Damn you Hasbro, what the hell? You know the running joke to the next HasLab, and God forbid you give us like 2 sets of patches next time.
Yeah. We've worked with Apache pilots on exercising in Canada and getting ready to go overseas. And we actually had, after a big mock attack on a village, all of our vehicles everywhere, we had one of your Apaches land right in front of everybody, shut down, go through the shutdown mode. The guy got out, put on his hat, had a cigar, and then went back in and left. Like just when I see patches, I think of arrogance. When I see arrogance, I always think of that guy. I was like, that's not arrogance. You literally have the coolest fucking job in the world, and you just
wait, explain that again. What did he do?
So we just finished this mock attack on this mock village, getting ready to go overseas. This is kind of what we do. And we were being supported by American air assets. And we had an Apache land because we were done the attack. He didn't want to stay up there anymore. And the guy got out basically just to meet with someone and have a smoke. And then he took his Apache and left again. Right? And it was like, that's the coolest job in the world when you get to do that. Like, I'm sitting here to pump a stove together. I'm going, I hate my life. Right? Like,
American can be kind of arrogant. But again, when you have that type of stuff, there's a reason why. Like when people say, you know, especially when it comes to the military, it's like they're just arrogant. It's like, do you see why they're arrogant though? I mean, you would be too.
Yeah. And I don't have a lot of room in my heart for egos. I like seeing egos get tapped down every now and then, but every now and then you see an ego where you're like, that's right where it needs to be, right? Like,
but is it ego or confidence?
That's the word.
There's a big difference, right?
It's a word, but it looks like ego, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So when you met your future wife, how did she deal with you collecting comics, or was it really not that big of a deal?
So my wife and I had 2 very different value systems, and so what was bothering her was the amount of money I was willing to spend a drop of a dime just because there was a comic store there, right? When I got into toy collecting, I was much more responsible about it, but it became, you know, first it was spending, okay, that's fine. Now it's about space and how much space is required, and then so we were never quite aligned with it, but she respected it. She respected that I was really into it, and that was enough for her to leave me alone with it, right? So,
okay, so she left you alone, and you eventually had a child.
Yes, she did. I helped.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Wrong.
You're sure he's yours, right?
You haven't seen my kid.
No, I have not.
No, he definitely looks like me mixed with Chinese for sure. Not many Chinese kids running around with blue eyes and brown hair. My seed is strong.
See, now I'm like wondering, like, what is a Chinese crow look like?
Well, you'll find out. He's been on. He showed up on one of my lives one day. No, he's a stunning devil. He's a stunning devil. He's gonna be. Actually, he's getting cut like bro. Like, yeah, bro. My son is working out like a madman right now.
Now, how old is he?
13. But
okay.
he's built like a 13 and a half.
So what year was he born? You're doing math.
2011.
2011. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So the kid comes along. Now you guys are both serving in the military, correct?
Yeah, that's a fair discussion point. Yeah.
Now, is she still in the military?
Yeah. So because we had an agreement like 2-3 years prior, like since the thing like 10 years, just you and I, and if we're still together, then we'll look at having a family.
Okay.
Right? We wanted to balance our careers and we wanted to get ahead. So by the time 10 years had gone, I was finally getting on my sergeants and things like that. And I just want to say goodnight. Goodnight, Mono Misfits. Goodnight, Loki. Thanks for coming by, buddy. But my wife's trade was more specialized, so they need more money, right? At the same rank level. So I would make this much money and she would make almost that and a half more. So when we had fun, I was the one that said, I'm not going to go up the ranks anymore. You go ahead. I'll stop so we could be more available, because it's too hard to raise a kid in the military when you're both at it and constantly deploying. So that's what that looked like.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. It doesn't sound conducive to have a family in that condition.
Some people can make it work. It just, it's just a different type of work. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a lot of family help, then how do you raise a kid or multiple kids? I know you don't have multiple kids if you guys are both being deployed, at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know you can picture it. I mean, I know Americans go through it the same way every other country goes through it. Eventually, you're going to have service couples that decide to have a family. That's just one of the things nobody talks about. You got to juggle that. That's all.
Yeah. So when did you get out of the military?
2022. That was it.
All right. And when did you start? Well, I guess now you're in the process of getting a divorce, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And everything is really good between you and his mother. I mean, again,
just kidding. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Hey, many people have heard me talk about my ex, and we have a great relationship. I mean, she comes over here. I mean, we don't. I say we get along great because we no longer see each other naked or live in the same house. You used to live in the same house, correct?
Yeah, I'm the same as you, right? Like with that kind of, I'm cool with my ex for a good reason, right?
Yeah.
And one, you got a kid involved, so what are you going to show that kid, right? What's the lesson here?
I agree so much with that. I agree with that more than I ever thought that I would. Like if any of you, and I mean this, if any of you are going through a divorce, or you go through divorce, or if you don't look at how you treat that kid's other parent, then that's on you, because you should be treating that other person the way you would expect them to treat someone if they were going through it, right? Because you want your kid to see that, like, hey, it didn't work out between them, but they love me and they're going to do their best to make it work. Like,
well, and for me, I mean, growing up without a dad, like my dad was there, but I didn't consider him my dad. I considered him, like the guy I saw once every 5-6 years for a day, things like that. So growing up without a dad per se, I was more like, hey man, when I have a kid, this is the kind of dad I want to be, right? And then when you don't hit that mark, that devastates you, right? You didn't hit that mark, so then you're about damage control, right? It's like, okay, I couldn't keep that family together, but my God, if I'm going to show him the mess, right? Like, that's kind of where I was coming from. Because why did you want to be a dad? Not to show him that, right? So
I would hope not. I would definitely hope not. You were feisty today, huh, buddy?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Roman's been over here.
You've got your pad over here.
He's making all kinds of noise over there. Do you want to go outside? Go ask the other in the other room.
In advance.
Yeah, everyone loves hearing you bark. Go in there and say, let me out. Look. And she comes.
You can't even turn around.
Go.
The baby's right there. Roman.
I'm sorry.
Go.
He doesn't understand.
No, he never did.
God, here comes everyone. Like Darren, first one in. Derek Holloman, Roman, same times toy. Bill, hi Roman. Let's see. Joe Gonsalves says, "I've been divorced twice. Hopefully, third time is the charm."
There should be a patch every time you do it, right? That's what patches for.
Hey, one time, okay. Second time, like, if it doesn't work out, I think you should just be like, hey, this is just me. I've never been married, though, so that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
I think that third time, you should just be like, hey, you know what? I can love you, but I sure don't need a piece of paper to know how this one ends.
Yeah.
Poplander says, man, I wish I was treated the way I treated my ex. Over the years, I can tell my son knows the truth. I did it completely the opposite of my dad. I wanted to be involved all the time in my son's life. You know, it's difficult because my ex was not that way at the beginning, but things changed over time. And I said the same thing you did, Pop. Like, I was like, you know what? I don't care. My kids need to see how it should be. I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but yeah, I did something different with, like, I looked at it and everyone was like, I cannot believe. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I have to look at it through my kids' eyes.
I was lucky. Like, my son's 13, and he's a good, mature 13. Like, he must have gotten that from his mom for sure. I had to think about too, right? Like, it's not just I'm about to tell my kid the family's breaking up, but what was his impression of divorces too? Like, my kid's gone to school. He's met some kids who's told them horror stories of divorces too. So it's like, he's already got a bad enough idea as soon as you put that word on the table, right? So, anyways, focusing on all of that, right? But,
yeah, 3-star says, I haven't even found my first ex-wife yet. Ain't looking real hard either. I'm with you, Darren. Capitan says, I'm not getting married. Don't blame you. And I'm sorry. You said this, so I don't have a problem saying it. Daredevil Dave says, I'm going through my second now. Just like, it was a couple weeks ago, Daredevil Dave's like, yeah, I got back from Joe Fest, and I got back from Joe Fest, and I got a divorce. What? Like, wait a minute.
yeah.
You just kind of threw that one out at us.
Yeah. Now, if you take me and Dave, and we both could say when we came back from Joe Fest, I was going into Joe Fest with that divorce under my belt, right? Now you start thinking, is there something wrong with Joe Fest? And it's like, well, we did spend a lot of money, right? But yeah, no, I felt bad for Dave after that. But I mean, I know what he's at, right? But you get past feeling bad about it, and then you're doing better, hopefully. And I hope Dave's doing good.
All right. Bill quickly says, I have to say, Lawrence, your reviews are so honest. Bro, I know this is off topic, but... All right, so I got to say, I read this, and I didn't see the whole thing, and I thought it said, I have to say, Lawrence, your reviews are so honest. Bro, I know this is off topic. Bye. And I'm like, that's kind of rude. And I'm like, oh, but we had a lot of, like, it took, and Matthew, he's been here for all of them. He can tell you, like, a lot of people didn't understand the show. They'd come in, they want to talk toys, and Matthew would always be the first one. Saying, hey, that's not what this show is about. You know, we'll talk some toys, but that's not, you know, because everyone wanted to ask me, especially if something happened that day, something Joe got dropped or whatever. And sometimes it was difficult because you're like, damn, I really want to talk about this, but that's not what the show is about. And I don't want the show to turn into that because that's not what this was ever supposed to be. So I appreciate all the people that have stuck with it and how the show has turned into where people tune in because they want to find out about the person next to me. Because God knows everyone already fucking knows about me. If I haven't thrown out my life there, then I don't know what you're watching.
Well, this Thursday with a friend thing was actually the first of the live streams that I ever watched. I saw these before I ever tuned in for a Monday Night Ramblings, right, or
Oh,
anything.
really?
Yeah, because I think we've talked about this on the phone before, and I know I've talked about this with other guys, but I think a lot of people out there are looking for someone that can, on some level connect to them in a certain way. Maybe it's a shared history of some sort, a shared opinion, a shared background, or something like that. So we've talked about like just coming out and saying, okay, this is who I am. Here you go. Bam. Right. And when you do a Thursday with a friend, I was sold the day I saw it was JLS Comics, but it wasn't the first time I was like, this is amazing. Like you need to be talking about toys on ToyTube. But the fact that you were taking the time to actually let us know who these guys were and hearing how relatable everybody was, it was like, yeah, this is exciting to me.
Well, I mean, I've talked about like the whole premise of this show. It came from being in chats, especially the big shows, Geek Dad Life, Toy Anxiety, Toy Habits, where there's so many people in the chat, right? And it was always like you would see Thanos Copter and Alice and Troy, and you'd see all these people, and I was always like, what is their story? Like, who are they? Because yeah, we see the people that show their face, like myself, but you don't see these other people. And my whole thing was eventually I wanted to find out who these people are. But other people got to be thinking the same thing as me, right? I mean, I can say now that my show has grown on Mondays. It's pretty big, and there's a lot of people. So there's got to be people in that chat going, hey, who the fuck is this Daredevil Dave guy? Who is Bill? Who is Pop Thunder, right?
Yeah.
And it takes, the first people that I asked, it was Allison and Tony. And I already kind of had I had met Allison and I started talking with Tony. And these are people that I knew I could hold the conversation with and could hold the conversation themselves. And that was how I was able to kind of break into it. And to me, it's been great getting to know. I'm so much more proud of this show than even my Monday show, which is way bigger. I mean, I understand where it's at. But the fact that I'm able to bring people on here, a lot of people, they're not used to being on camera. A lot of them think they're not interesting, and I'm like I will continue to go back probably to the last show I do, PNC. He was like, I don't know how interesting I'm going to be. I collect Transformers. I'm like, that is super interesting. And he ends up showing us his whole toy room. And a lot of his Transformers, his video games, like that's the one that I sent over Lenny when I asked Lenny to come on. I'm like, hey, take a look at this one. I avoided sending over the one with Oz and what Oz got into. I'll let you know when you watch this one. But yeah, again, I'm so glad that anyone wants to come on here and talk with me. But that's the whole premise of this, is to showcase people that are there that no one really knows and that have supported me, right? That's
was a popular time in our culture for everybody to be on that level too, right? Like we're in a very expressive culture where we're trying to, relate with everybody. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And I'm one of the few guys that was very vocal. I also enjoyed the Punks on Film. Right? Like I was down with that. I know it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, but I just think YouTube has a big spot. There's a lot of ways to approach this the way you're doing things, right?
Oh yeah, and again, you don't want to do everything like everyone else. I mean, there's a lot of guys, especially in what we're doing, they want to have the toy maker on, the designer, the next big YouTuber, or the bigger, like I don't it's nice to have those on. I only asked Lenny to come on because him and I have talked back and forth. And again, anyone that watched it realized it was not about Hasbro. It wasn't about the G.I. Joe product. It was about him. And it ended up being a wonderful interview. Now, I got to talk to him, backstage about a lot of different things. But, that's, those things that you look at. And
And then you would have had so many more consequences too to different types of questions working for a big company like that. Like, you have to make it about the person. You can't always make it about the toy for other reasons, right? Like,
yeah. And that's why it had to be. That's why like that one had to be pre-recorded. But and there were certain people that they couldn't really talk about their job. Johnny Reno. He could mention kind of what he did. There's another guy that's been in the chat today that he really couldn't get into it. And he's a big YouTuber, right? He has a whole bunch, but what he does is completely different.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how we ended up getting on this.
I just find the whole YouTube thing is just like, this is the excitement I was looking for after the army. I wanted to learn something new, right? And I didn't want to go to school. And then learning how the YouTube works, learning how all you guys in your channels kind of were doing your thing, and then trying it out, that was actually exactly what I needed. That was my point about after the military. There you go.
The damn Hasbro show, I know. No, but yeah, again, there's just so much that you in this, and I know what you're saying about not wanting to go back to school. I love turning on YouTube while I'm driving and learning about growing your channel, how to create better content. And even though some people may go, you don't ever create better content, you do the same type of videos, you'd be surprised how much I've changed. I also know that how I do things, people want to watch it. But I think there's a big difference between sitting in a classroom while you try and learn, rather than, oh my God, I want to learn on this, but I want to learn on my own at my own pace. I can turn on YouTube. There's more than enough people that will talk about it, and that's why I don't try and hide anything. If you guys want to know something and I know it, I'll tell you guys, because there's no reason to gatekeep.
That's right. And that's actually 90% of what you and I talk about. What do you think about this? What should I do about that? Well, here's my thoughts, right? And it's absolutely not gatekeeping. And it's smart to ask the guys that have come before you. Like, that's the first thing we always learn is, if you don't know somebody, find somebody that, if you don't know something and you have access to a subject matter expert, then go to them, right? But if you don't know about Hasbro and you have access to Lenny, go to Lenny. Right? I didn't know about YouTube, so I went to guys like Aaron the Toy Enhancer, 3-Star Draw, Punk with Toys, others, right?
Yeah.
That was and that was fun.
And there's a lot of people that would gatekeep it, and they do it in every walk of life, right? But to me, I remember reaching out to Darren, 3-Star Draw, and said, hey, do you mind if I give you some constructive criticism, right? Or if somebody asked me something, if I'm watching someone make a mistake that I know is a mistake, and I'm not saying that I know a mistake because like I know everything, but it's like, well, I've watched many YouTubers. I made the mistake. Why do you sit there and let someone make the same mistake over and over and over and over when you can quickly say, hey, you can do anything the way you want, but here's a little tip that I learned, and there's no reason for you to suffer for the next 4 months trying to figure out, hey, what am I doing wrong here when I know what it is? It's like being at the gym and you see someone doing something wrong and you walk up and say, hey, do you mind if I give you a couple of pointers that I think you're doing something wrong, that you could hurt yourself, or maybe this will help you out better. You don't have to be a dick about it. You don't have to have some ego. And if they say, nope, I'm not interested, you say, okay, no problem. If you're interested, just come over here. Right?
Yeah. And the ego is the big thing that keeps everybody from doing it too, right? Like, because like you said, like just coming in and asking the advice. But I don't know about you, but if I ever give advice, I walk away going, did that guy even ask for advice? Was I just virtue signaling that guy or giving him a pat?
Oh, I've thought about that many times.
Was that?
I've thought about that many times.
Yeah, and it's not that. It's just you understand everybody has their boundaries of where they want advice and where they don't. They want to do their own thing, right? And I don't know. I find there's a consciousness, but I find, especially like for guys like yourselves and the guys that are sitting over the, let's say, 499, the 5,000K mark, like at some point, somebody's got to think about what it is they're putting out there, because they have influence right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And you have influence. You watching people make the same mistake over and over and over again, and you have the ability to say something and do something about it. Well, if you don't, then what are you saying you're there to do, right?
There's also a point where you can see that somebody is just throwing out a video because they're like, hey, you know what? I have this toy. I want to talk about it, right? They don't really give a shit about ever doing it. And then you can look at other people and you can be like, this person is trying to get better. So I already have some sort of, relationship with them, some sort of correspondence. Why not just reach out to them and say, hey, do you mind me giving you a quick pointer that I learned? It's not like, hey, I invented this system. I've watched so many YouTubers that will talk about this stuff. And it's like, if I've learned it from them, why not just pass it on? And a lot of guys won't.
And I mean, I watched, it wasn't just you. I was watching, like,
Yeah.
I used to watch his chat, Viper Island. I watched a bunch of guys. The very first ones I watched were Kyle Peterson, who was in the chat last night for Travis and Ace and Ballbox and Tony Tom. Right? Kyle Peterson showed up. He was the very first one where I was like, this guy, I remember him, right? And I hope that was the same Kyle Peterson, but I think it was. And Saturday Morning Toy Collector. Like, you couldn't pick a more diverse group of guys, right? But yeah, eventually talking to them is a completely different thing, right?
It is, and there are people. I don't know how we got on the subject, but hell, welcome to A Punk with Toys. There are people that as they get bigger, they don't want to mess with the common people. I don't get me wrong. Anyone at Joe Fest knows I kept making the joke about, oh, I have that lanyard. I don't have to go in where the common people go.
Yeah.
Oh, you commoners, you go over there. I'll meet you down there. It's all in jest, right? But there are some people that they don't want to talk to them. They don't want to reach out. And you can tell some people are like, they've reached a status. They want to stay at that status. And I guess in some ways it's hard because you have 50,000 people that think they know exactly who you are.
And that's the thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like the problem is like you can, most of the times you can tell if somebody's playing a character or not. If somebody wants to play a heel or the hero on YouTube, it's pretty clear, right?
Yes.
The question is does the guy in front of the camera have any impression of what you are? We're dealing with the internet. A billion different people on there for a billion different reasons, and what you get out of your channel might not be the same as what it is for everybody else, right? And if you guard that and protect that with any kind of venomous or like aggression, then you get called an asshole and things like that. And it's like, hey, it's just a different approach, right? Like, we got to be careful, man. There's a lot of different types out here.
You have guys like Viper Island, the Artist Shark. They're not doing it for the community. They're there to give some news, right? They're not going to go to conventions. They're not actually buying the toys. They're not actually collecting the toys. They're talking about it, and that's all well and good. You have guys like me, you, Aaron, Tony, like we're doing stuff and we're getting to know these people. And again, it's like hanging out at a bar. It's like hanging out at a skate park and you're getting to know these people. I say it every Monday. Like, this show is nothing without every single one of you in the chat, because we're all just hanging out on Monday nights. Because how many conversations are going in that chat? Oh, I'm just rambling on. Like, really, there should be 4 people watching my show going, what the hell is this guy rambling on about again? But instead, last week was an anomaly because I was giving something away. But, I'm getting, 80, 90 people watching every single week now.
I like that you just reminded me. So do you mind if I share that one piece of advice you gave me the one time? about the giveaway thing? Just in general. It was a general
Yeah,
statement.
you can. Yeah, I don't hide anything I say.
So there was a time where Punk and I were just talking about just contests in general, right? And at 450, I've made it clear I'm not in a rush to grow my channel. I just want to learn and do it at a comfortable pace. Eventually, you have to start talking about contests and giveaways. And I was saying I felt bad about how my last contest went, and it didn't go the way I thought it would go. It was taking a lot longer to make good on my end because of the factors. And Lawrence had said, just remember, you become a giveaway contest once, you might always become a giveaway contest. Like that might be all the people start thinking you're there for, right? Like that's what they keep coming back. So you have to be cognizant of really, you want to be the most generous, kindest person. You want to get involved with your chat. You want to do a billion things for people. But you got to be aware of the people that are just there because that's what you do, right?
Yeah. No, and that's what it becomes. And that came from that came from people started hitting me up because Chad gave a bunch of stuff away after he hit 5,000, and people were like, are you going to do a giveaway? And God, this sounds awful.
Well, what a position.
I'm too honest about shit. And I was just like, I thought about doing stuff, but I'm like, if I do 5,000, I want it to be something special, not just, hey, I went to Ollie's and I bought some stuff and I'm going to give it away. And I was like, it kind of pissed me off because it's like, I shouldn't have to give something away every time I hit a milestone, right? Like you shouldn't have to. You should want to give certain things away at milestones per se, just to celebrate, right? Because you are celebrating with everyone. But it kind of pissed me off. And the reason why I ended up doing the 5,000 giveaway was because somebody reached out to me that said, hey, I'm really happy for you. I have this once a man Cobra Commander. I'd like to send it to you if you could do a giveaway maybe for 5,000. I was like, thank you very much, right? But it is weird. Like people feel like you hit 5,000, you hit 500, you should do a giveaway. You hit 1,000. Like these are the milestones. You should do a giveaway.
Yeah. And
I don't think that you should or feel like you should. And people tend to feel like you should be giving something away every time you hit a milestone.
And I think it comes a lot with how people worry about what the perception is, right? If I don't do this, what are you saying about me? And am I validating that, right? So it's tricky. You want to make everybody happy, but at the same time, if you're more worried about making them happy and it's costing you your happiness, just don't do giveaways, right? Like, yeah.
And it is true. Like if you become a channel that gives stuff away all the time, you become a giveaway channel, and that's what people are always tuning in for.
Yeah, and I know Aaron does a lot of giveaways and whatnot, but Aaron also bolsters that with a lot of other content where he's tearing things apart. He's doing a lot of on-site reviews, and right now he's at Dragon Con getting so much video footage together. Right, but there's some people that will just rely on the giveaways. I get that, right?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's what you want to do, I mean, that's awesome. It doesn't mean that you're not enjoying what you're doing, but it's almost like you feel like you have. It's like the people that buy subs. They feel like to continue growing, they have to buy subs. It's almost like I'm doing giveaways all the time, and that's the only way I can keep people.
My whole thing on it again is like I said, I've been around me. Oh, are you there?
Me?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was looking at the wrong screen and I suddenly realized the mouth was moving. That's the wrong screen, old man. No, me and Aaron, the Toy Enhancer, and a few others all started our channels at the same time. Around spring last year, and he took off, and I've been kind of dragging along, and I've been venomously defending. Like I'm fine with that. Because my whole approach, and I think guys in the chat would relate, because most of us have channels in the chat, right? The reason it doesn't bother me is because I think about things like, what if you just get the subscribers that are just there for the low-hanging fruit reasons, right? The wrong reasons maybe sometimes. And if I'm trying to connect with my audience and I want them to connect with me, then I want a specific type of person there. It's not like I'm trying to discriminate. But I want somebody there that's there for a very good reason, right? And if that's slow to build and takes like a full year to hit, maybe full year to cross 300 or 400, that's fine. So long as those guys are sticking around, that's what matters, right? If they were to suddenly leave, I would want to know why. But like, I don't care about why they come in droves. I'd love to hit that point, but I want to earn that, And if you don't know how to earn it, then learn.
And so it all, I always say, when it comes to growing a channel on YouTube, and it doesn't matter. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, sure, I could get into movies, start doing movie reviews like Screen Crush, and the channel is going to grow, right? Or I could do a channel that's going to grow faster because there's more people watching movies than collecting toys. I could do a Star Wars channel, and I could do a politics channel, and God, I'd probably make so much more fucking money and grow so much fucking faster. I have no passion for it, right? I really have no passion for politics. I'll be 100% honest, but
thank God.
But at least what we're doing, it is this, it's a marathon. And as long as you see a growth, and growth is also like spending your time learning how to do better videos. Yeah. And it's not just like, well, look how much more professional. What are the people that are watching it tuning in for? Through everything that went on, and again, I watch a lot of stuff. I get sent a lot of stuff. There's a certain group of people that are not happy with my Vanguard review. I watched that Vanguard review 2 times, an hour through. That's 59 minutes. All right. That was 2 hours of my life I can never get back, including the amount of time it took me to make it. Right. And I'm not saying that because that is a bad thing. And I watched it and I go, I wasn't even negative on it. I was as objective as I could be. But because people see me and they perceive that I hate Valaverse, although no one ever talks about how much I love that swarm tracer, like glow in the dark, right? Like no one ever thinks about that. No one says anything about that. That's what they saw. That's what they went after. And it was like, go back and watch that. Just take your time. And the amount of people I can't help what people say in the comments. If people are blasting that thing, some of them are way off base on what they're saying.
Yeah.
But when people tell you you're honest, and that's the whole reason why I turn in. Yeah. That is all I care about. Like, you are honest about it. But you know this, and as well as I know this, if you go into something saying, dude, this guy if you go in saying this guy hates Valaverse, then you're going to find everything that could be perceived as negative on that Vanguard. If you go in the video I dropped today saying, hey, you know what? This guy, all he does is love Gridiron. You're going to say this guy shilled for it, and all he did was say positive stuff, even though I said a lot of negative stuff in that.
You said that negative stuff about Stinger. I remember when you did the Ramen Racer, you talked about the USB port and lights not fixing. If there's negative stuff to be talked about, you have to talk about it. If there's positive, it's positive. I just don't get, so I'm going to use myself and how I learned about Valaverse as a prime example of like, this is the dangers, right? I get G.I. Joe because all of a sudden the nostalgia hook got me by the cheek when I saw a Stalker one day. A 6-inch Stalker brought me into Joe, followed by Spirit and all the others, right? And like I'm suddenly hooked on that. Have I ever heard of Valaverse before? I'm in Canada and I'm at a Toys R Us. It's not something they carry. I've never heard of this. But as I start looking into G.I. Joe Classified and I go on YouTube, what I learn is that me no like Bobby Vala Hasbro enemy, and I hear Bobby Vala saying Hasbro bunch of jerks, blah blah blah. And at some point I'm like, can I see a figure at some point? And now I get it, right? And here now this is the history of the figure to me. It's not about a dystopian world that looks a lot like a continuation of Joe. It's about 2 companies that can't stand each other. And it feels so frigging weird when I look at them together on my shelf. And I'm like, how do they not get along? They complement each other so well, right? Like, this is how I learned about Valaverse. And I see a bunch of other people going, how many toy companies are you learning about drama? That's a ridiculous way to learn about a toy.
Did I ever tell you what really started kicking off the channel?
Skateboarding.
No, but what made this channel start to grow
was
when I started reviewing Valaverse.
Yeah. I do.
And that all goes back to I didn't know what they were, and all I heard was they're the biggest piece of shit figures ever, or they're the greatest. And I was like, it can't be either or. There was no one in between. And my buddy Greg, who I met toy hunting at Target, it's like, I have them if you want to review them, because all I was doing was comparing the GI Joes to. I was comparing GI Joe, the classified, to the originals. I had no idea. Didn't really know about toys. Didn't know about plastic. And I said, yeah. And they were already open, so it wasn't how I do the videos now. And I did some stuff, and they weren't perfect. They had their issues, but they were good enough for me to continue buying. And you saw that there was a progression happening. And that's when people started hitting me up and saying, this is the first honest review that I've seen of Valibers. And I heard people still, and what was funny is that those early ones, either people would say, oh my God, you just totally hate the company, or, oh my God, you just totally love the company. It was like, and it'd be the same fucking video. And you're going, how did you see that I hate Valibers in this? And the person right below you said, all I do is love them.
Yeah. I personally, unless I put out there that I have a side in a fight, I'm not even in the fight, man. Like, leave me out of it. I just want to play with these things, right? Like, I want to put myself. But unfortunately, when you, like, it's perfectly normal. It's human nature to go, let's see what the feel of the room is and get the vibe, and then to walk in and say, I'm a part of that vibe now. I'm up to date. And you walk in going, I now have a bias I wasn't even aware of. Right? Like, it's just, that's how this stuff happens. So it's unfortunate, but I mean, I understand it too. I look at guys like Ace for ramen toys, and then I'll use Bobby Vala for Valivers. Two very different personalities, two very different ways of being transparent about who they are as the heads of their company, right?
Yeah.
Do you want both their products? Sure. Like, it just doesn't matter to me.
So Wade Hollison says, it's because you were the only one saying the truth about the product and being able to stay objective enough to separate the product from the maker. And I take huge pride, and it's almost to a detriment in my life that I can separate personal from professional. And for me, I didn't, and even to this day, it doesn't matter what I think about the owner. When I look at the figure, he is completely removed from it. I'm looking at the toy. But the people that know that I'm not a fan of him, the moment they see it, they just assume this is what he's going to do. He's going to bash it. And I just pointed stuff out. And a lot of people are mad that with the Vanguard, I talked about the plastic and the texture, right? And people are like, look at the texture. Yeah, the Vanguard has texture. The problem is cars don't have texture. They're smooth. Yeah. Look at the Vamp. Look at the Hiss Tank. Look at the Ramen Racer. They're smooth. They don't have texture because vehicles don't have texture. That is that is why people look at that thing and feel that the plastic looks cheap. It has texture around it. Now, I don't want to make this into a whole Valibers thing, but that's where that came from, right? But I remove it. I don't really care. I'm looking at the toy. I don't,
I think that's the biggest part of critical thinking. Like, that's what I really enjoy, is I like sitting there and going, okay, I now know the argument. So let's pretend I had to trick myself into seeing the other side of the argument and critical think it to death until I see the other side of it, right? And if you can do that, then who's running a company and saying what isn't as important as what's on the table? That's kind of how I wanted to run things. But it took me a long time to learn that on YouTube, right? Because I was used to a professional military environment. And what I was seeing with YouTube was a mix of different types of professionals and then complete characters. Like people that weren't professional, but still very popular for being not professional. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
There you go. Right. So learning about all that, it's just that slow thing. But that, to me, that's way better than paying $50,000 to go to university to learn about a program I'm probably not going to learn. Like, choosing your education and how you go about doing it, like picking YouTube and doing a channel, I spike the ball every day, saying that was the best choice I've ever made, like in the last few years. Right? It's fun every day.
You're kind of getting back on topic here about the whole YouTube thing. Like, yeah, like you're choosing to learn something rather than go to college and hey, this semester you have to do this and get this done, which might be beneficial for certain things. But if you're retired or you're like me, I have a profession. If YouTube got rid of this in one day, I would survive. I don't survive off this. I enjoy doing this, or I wouldn't be here as much as I am. I wouldn't be pushing out content. So I enjoy doing it, but I'd still be paying my bills. My kids would still be eating. I'd still have a roof over my head. Roman would still be there. I'd actually rather have more time on my hands, to be 100% honest.
It's such a bad idea.
Yeah. But yeah, YouTube can allow you to do so many different things. We used to always tell my son, like, you're not making money off YouTube. Now, I wish now I would, and I've tried telling him, like, hey, you want to start editing video, start doing stuff, put it on your channel. Grow an audience. Grow, again, you like doing this man on the street talking to people. Go to car shows. Go to different events around and just talk to people, right? Pull them aside, talk to them. People will eventually start to like you, and they won't care what you put it at. You could stop at a skate park and talk to 5 different people. They want to hear you because they've gotten to know you and like you. I had someone in the comments a couple weeks ago say, I would listen to you review a ham sandwich. I'm very close to just reviewing a ham sandwich and seeing how many views it gets. Probably get more than a fucking Motu.
Well, freaking classified weapon.
But yeah. So I don't know. And Bill's not.
No, but I mean, it's either way. Like we said, choosing the education is fun. But sorry, I missed that last comment.
He says high-end cars that are 4x4s do have texture.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
So rather than focus on what the Vanguard did or didn't have, or what the HasLab had over it or Vamp had under it, I'm more like, isn't it more interesting to understand why these things weren't there or why other things were there? Like, to me, that's the fascination with these toys. Sometimes it's not just about the nostalgia. It's kind of going, what were your conversations were like that led you to do that? A steering column but no engine that we could look at. Things like that, right? I'd be more interested in those.
I'm sorry, 3-star ham sandwiches exposed.
No. Going after the chicken. What? Wait.
Man, you guys are making me think about what I should.
You got to do a ham sandwich now. You could do Roadblock making ham sandwiches. Which variant of Roadblock makes what kind of ham sandwich, right?
All right, anyway. Anyway, what were we saying now? Oh yeah.
Fix on the ham sandwich. No, yeah.
Everyone wants me to review a ham sandwich now.
Yep, I think that's where we were. I was saying, we were talking about what we like about YouTube, and then it was ham sandwiches. That's good. We're caught up. I like ham sandwiches.
And then somehow we got on the Vanguard, and again, I'm not talking.
Yeah.
But again,
the difference, I think, was where we were.
Yeah. At. Again, how we got on this because it's supposed to be about you, and somehow we're talking about my show and how I do things. But
I can justify that. A big thing about why I'm doing these shows and things, like I said I wanted to learn things, was because what I loved was eventually you get to the point where you get to have new conversations with people you didn't have access to last year, right? And that was the beauty of Joe Fest, right? Getting to go talk to company owners, like that's how I met Ken and Steve for Delta 17, like things like that. So that's part of it.
Okay, I got to address this here.
Hashtag Hamguard.
Clint Jorgensen says Quiznos versus Subway versus Jersey Mike's. Okay, so I want to talk about Quiznos really quick.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember the Quiznos commercials with the little rat singing? They had these commercials, and there were these two rats singing. It was the fucking greatest commercials ever. They were playing fucking instruments. They were little rats, and they had like the face popping out, talking. Oh my god, it was awesome, right? And I loved them. Well, the mother of my kids, here's 44D2. He remembers saying, yes, those were gross. 3-star remembers them, right? So, yeah, they kind of look like roadkill. The fuck, they were hilarious. So where my ex used to work was at a hotel, and she worked at night, so she could go to school. And one day, like, they would have big conventions there, kind of like Joe Fest, right? Like, they would have conventions. And one day they had people in, and they were talking. So they were just asking, because she worked late at night, so they were asking the staff about, you ever see the Quiznos commercial? Like, and she's like, yeah, those things are creepy. That's just wrong. Why are they trying to get rats to sell food and stuff? That's just disgusting, right? She goes on and on and on. Turns out it was a convention, and she was talking to the Quiznos people. Within 6 months, those things were taken off the air. I'm not saying that she fully has to do anything with it, but I blame her because, god damn it, I love those fucking Quiznos commercials.
Well, and here's the thing, though, right? Until she said that, did you ever consider how unhygienic and unsanitary a rat was? That to connect it to a food item is probably kind of gross. But
I don't care. I don't even know they were rats. They might have been like gerbils. Either way, they were awesome. It was just, it was off. And again, they were asking her. I can't imagine that her and her coworkers really had that much of an influence. But I just remember her coming and telling me that, like, yeah, those people from Quiznos were in. And I didn't realize it. And they were asking about the commercial. And when she told me, I'm like, what are you talking about? These commercials are awesome. I'm going to watch them when we're done with the show.
We used to do class. I don't know. You guys must have something similar in your high school curriculum. Well, like we up here, we do English, but there's different types of English. And we're not talking about learning language English and literature, reading and all that stuff. But we had one called Media English, and it was breaking down like how advertising works, things like that. They offer that kind of stuff in your usual high school. Yeah. So like that's that kind of stuff. Like you see it in YouTube all the time. It's like the rules for TV almost seem to be kind of almost what the rules for YouTube are pretending they're not. You know, and it's very much, yeah, there's a lot of similarities I find. I missed 3 stars comment there.
He said, but Quiznos was better than Subway and Jersey Mike's. Quiznos are long gone here, but Firehouse subs tops them all. I've never had Firehouse. I've only had Jersey Mike's once, and it was really good. Do you guys have Tubby subs where you guys are at? They're based
no, but I think we took all your Quiznos. We got that.
We don't have many. I know where there's one Quiznos.
No.
Anyway, I don't know how I do. If you would have had Quiznos subs, or the rats from Quiznos on your bingo card, then you might have won also.
Yeah, this is what I brought to the table tonight.
All right, so let's get back on track because let's talk about your toys before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
So when did you get into collecting toys?
I mean, as an adult, post-COVID, right? So COVID locked us all inside, and I was collecting hockey cards and Hot Wheels at the time. And that was just really boring. And then when I finally got out COVID, you know how everybody wanted to go out shopping as soon as they could, right? I went right to a local comic store and there was stalkers staring at me on a shelf, and I was like, "What are you?" Right? Like, but I noticed Lady J before that, and I was like, I don't care. But when I saw the stalker, that's about when I was like, okay, I'm doing this now, and I'm going to do it a lot, and I'm going to overdo it. Right?
Now Rachel says Thursday with a sandwich.
Maybe that should be like your new rule. Maybe like a Thursday with a friend, and each of you brings a sandwich and talks about the sandwich. Like,
Except you know I hate eating on stream, so the sandwich is going to waste. I guess I could give a reason to actually, you know, maybe I'll review it for my streamathon. I'll review a sandwich.
Oh yeah, because hey, isn't there a whole thing about eating hot wings with celebrities? Isn't that popular? Why can't you eat subs with buddies?
I don't know. I've never heard that.
Is there a thing about eating hot wings? Hugh Jackman will talk while he's eating hot wings, and there's a whole thing on that.
I had no idea.
Hoagie night. I like it.
All right, so after COVID is when you got into it.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I've been eyeballing toys in general, but I mean, I was collecting hockey cards, and if you've ever collected hockey cards, seriously, like that, the money tap never turns off. So I wasn't going to work it into my budget until I stopped something, right? So I had to stop collecting hockey cards and get rid of that. And that's what I do. If I have a big thing I'm collecting, I usually cap at one or two things, or else I have to get rid of a collection to make room for a new one, right? And I think some people could relate to that. Collecting gets big. All right, I'm trying to read the comments.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, we're both doing it. I'm like, look. Read.
Oh wait, are you talking? I'm sorry. I'm reading all the sandwiches shit.
Clubs with buddies. Hockey curds. Hockey cards. Fine. It's like
so. What do you mostly collecting? It will not be this one. I can promise you, it will not be Punk versus Footlong. All right. That I can promise you. Okay.
That's jumping the shark. That's the end of the show. After that.
All right. Just like it will not be Punk with what someone said on Monday. If you want to figure out what that is, you can watch that. But it just makes you sound like a
no hot dogs, no tacos, no.
All right. So what are you collecting?
Yeah, mainly I'm trying to close out my classified. Like I'll leave myself a few more that I have to go back and find. And that after that, I think I'm gonna start getting into some. Well, definitely Delta 17. Like get into that line a little bit because I need a 3 3/4 line to collect. Like having a 6-inch line's fine, but I like a smaller one. And I'm starting to get more and more into Joy Toy as I'm seeing them. I'm just finding it hard to nail down. But really, I like the idea of collecting one line and then just buying drip grabs of them. I don't necessarily need to collect a lot of lines.
So do you see yourself staying with classified, or do you see yourself getting away from it?
I like that question because I didn't think about that. No, I'm going to stay with it. It's the larger that collection goes, especially out of a box, the more you've done with it over the time, either building sets for it or theming it with your gridiron or your arsenal of Pew Pew or Top Fun Retro Toys, all these different companies. To get rid of it after would seem like such a waste of an investment for me. I think these are really nice masterpieces of art in their own way.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to get rid of it now. But I'm glad you asked it because I had spent a lot of time thinking about that. I was like, what if this is just another box of Hot Wheels or hockey cards and you lose interest? And I think the connection runs too deep. That nostalgia effect is just too set in with my childhood for me to get rid of it.
And again, I'm with you. I mean, although I did just jettison about 40 Motu figures today, and it was, I didn't buy the Motu Origins, that's Masters of the Universe Origins. I know 10 people just left as soon as I said Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
I didn't buy them because they were cool. I bought them because they took me back to even though I played with them, even though I didn't have a lot. I finally got rid of the orange. Like I started buying them, and as I know, there's more classified coming. The Monster Force is coming. I collect other things. Space is at a premium in my house now. It was time to get rid of some stuff, so I decided to jettison. It's not Masterverse stuff, Darren. The Origin stuff.
I like how you use the word jettison, and like to me, it's always the word purge, but it's the same thing. It's like it's got to go.
Yeah, and it really became. I'd been talking about it, and then I reached out to Oz and I said, "Hey, do you need any of these figures?" And I really got to get rid of them. Are there any that you're looking for? And one that he said was Triclops. And since Triclops is one of the main bad guys, once he said he needed that, it was like, okay, now I don't have a problem because there's no more of that. Well, I'm just going to keep the main guys. You've taken one of the big main guys.
Yeah.
That if you're going to keep that, that's how you're going to, how you're going to keep it.
Taking out the linchpin, you don't care about the rest of it. Once the linchpin's gone, it can fall apart.
Yeah. So then I put it up in another group chat that I'm in, and one guy hit me up and he said, "Hey, I'll take all the figures." And then I went through them all. I cataloged them all. He didn't take all of them, but he took a good amount. But when I was taking them off, I really came to the conclusion I really like repaints of He-Man. Fakor, Anti-Eternia He-Man, he's Skeletor. I'm like, I'm keeping these. But then it kind of it got to like, you know what? This can be a way for me to continue to collect Master of the Universe where they're just like basically the He-Man figures. Because I really started looking at them like, I don't know why. I really like the way they look. I know they're just repaints. So I took a whole bunch and I left them there. And there's a few that I kept, but I cut a whole bunch and there's a whole bunch more going on eBay.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand this, what you've just described better than some might, because I have flipped over collections of cards and tabletop gaming pieces. Like I have flipped in the market on my respective collections. And yeah, once you get rid of a core piece of a collection, having the rest of the collection might not serve you. So you sometimes feel better purging yourself of it. But isn't it the shittiest feeling in the world when all of a sudden your interest in that thing was renewed 10 years later and you remember, right? Like all of us, my classic Star Wars, my classic G.I. Joe. And that's what I'm always afraid of. When I collect something and then it's time to get rid of it, I'm like, but what if I'm really going to regret that?
And nothing that I really buy. I can't say that. I will buy a figure to review it that I'm not trying to get in line because it's kind of what I want for the channel where people will tune in is like, okay, I got where the fuck is it? This fist figure, right? I'm sorry, this thing ends up being a piece of trash. It's super loose joints. It's not that good. The plastic isn't really good at all. Sorry, guys. I can say that. It's my opinion that it's not that good. All right. Hence, it's a review of my opinion. But, so there's some things that I get, but like the Origins, the Gargoyles, the Mythic Legions that I pick up, I'm not buying them because, oh my God, this is the cool thing to do now. And I'm seeing something, I'm like, that looks cool. I want that. So when you come to the point where it's like, all right, well, classified is G.I. Joe is what I collect. Obviously, there's other things that are coming that I want to go down. It becomes that point where it's like, it's hard to get rid of it because I didn't buy it because it was what was cool at the time. I bought it because I enjoyed it and I liked it.
That's right. And that's exactly it. I bought it because I enjoyed it. I really don't care what the manufacturer brand on the bottom of the box shows me. It's that thing. That's what I like. And that's the only thing I get upset about when I'm doing like YouTubing and all that is just like, don't put more to that feeling than what I've just put in there. Don't tell me it's because I'm sucking someone up or because I'm a big shill for someone else, just because we buy those things. Like, it is genuinely exactly the same reason I think everybody else buys those ones and twos toys, right? But
Yeah.
turn it into a war.
But like what you were saying, like 'cause I never really sold a collection.
Mm.
But you're so right. When you get rid of one of the mainstays, then it's easier to look at it because now, like again, if he wouldn't have wanted that one, he would have picked some other ones. I would have been like, well, I'm going to keep Trapjaw, Beastman, and Triclops because they're the three henchmen, the three main henchmen for Skeletor, right? And you're going to be like, well, then I'm going to keep Man at Arms, Tila, and I don't know if there's anyone else. Cringer. Well, actually, I am keeping
Oracle.
I had this thing for the He-Man. Orko, yeah. But once the one was taken away, now you're like, who the fuck cares? Now I can have a onesie, twosie here. It doesn't really matter. But at the same time, I look back and I'm like, what if, like, Johnny Reno sends me all these Star Wars Power of the Force. We did that whole month. And I'm like, these are fun fucking figures. That's funny. That was actually one of the figures that he wanted was Gray Stratos. That was another one that he wanted, and that was one of my favorite figures. That's why Johnny Reno sent me that one on card from the original one.
I think if there was a toy devil, you know, like the devil that goes around and gets you to sign contracts for your soul, I think if you were to play a toy devil, you'd be the guy that would go around and offer people ludicrous amounts of money to split up C-3PO and R2. Like, you can keep...
You have to keep one, but you can't have the other.
That's right. You know, and you will never unite them again.
But you will get to have all the other Star Wars figures.
That's right. But that's what it feels like sometimes when somebody says, well, you know, like, I need that part of the collection. Well, then the collection just isn't the same. I'm trying to get the comments down. Yeah. Holy crap. We've been at it for almost 3 hours.
I know. Hey, this show goes by quickly.
It does. I didn't expect that. Well, yeah, I guess more or less didn't picture it.
So not Rachel says, but Punk, you already have the best Beastman on the interwebs. What Beastman is that?
Is that the Moss Man's?
I don't have Moss Man. I just have his. I'm just trying to think of
Beastman. Roman? Is Roman Beastman?
Oh, maybe. We'll see. We'll see if not Rachel says something. I do have the other one. I do have one of the Masterverse ones that I found when we went to Disney for like $7. I'm like, I want that. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting here with I have like the stuff that goes over them, like right next to me, because I want to see how it looks on an A-Walk. But I've just been too lazy to go grab it. All right, so as for your YouTube channel, since you started your YouTube channel, I want to ask, like, where do you want to take your YouTube channel? Where do you see it going, and where do you want to take it?
So that's what the first year was really about, was just kind of throwing a bunch of concepts at the wall to see which ones worked and which ones didn't, right? So, I mean, toy reviewing is toy reviewing. I do some custom stuff that sticks every now and then. When I have the time to do customs, I'll do that. But I enjoy kind of looking at it from a collectionist point of view, and almost like hacks. You know what I mean when I say hacks, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's like I do Thrifty Thursdays, and I grab like cheap bags, like these things, and I'll tell people, oh, I bought this, and this is what I picture. And every now and then I'll execute that, and I'll actually do it. Gun Bunny does it on a way more amazing level. But it's like that kind of idea. It's sharing that mindset with people. And it's the idea of, like, I hate saying this. It sounds so infantile. But I'm at that age now where I've put in a full life of work, and I've worked really hard. So I want to go back to thinking like a kid again. So it was more like revisiting all these ideas that excited me as a kid, but putting an adult critical thinking on it and seeing where it goes. So that's kind of just where the channel goes. It's just putting a different perspective on these toys. That's all.
No, and I think you have a very unique perspective on. I mean, I know I make fun of you about it, but I'm not making fun of you if I don't like you.
See, we learned that in the Army really fast, man. Like, well, honestly, I'd be worried if you weren't making fun of me.
Yeah, there's a difference between making fun of you and being a dick towards you.
That's right.
You know the difference when I do it.
Yeah. Being a dick, acting a dick, you'd be surprised what the word does.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I'll rag on you because you get overly. Again, I saw it when you were doing your show and you were complaining about how the Ram Cycle didn't have an ammo canister, and I'm like, they're fucking toys, man.
Yeah. And then I tried to turn it around on you and your Vanguard and the gun not depressing, right? But I get the point. It's easy for me to get locked in on a train of thought and then try to express it. But every now and then, and I'm not trying to brag or anything like this. I mean, I think guys know I'm pretty humble. But every now and then, I get surprised where I've shared a thought on someone and I see someone's eyes kind of go, hang on. Holy shit, that's right, right? And I'm like, wow, somebody didn't see it that way. That's so weird, right? So that's kind of fun for me. That's all.
3-Star Draw says, no one else in G.I. Joe is doing reviews and giving real-world tactical breakdowns with real-world experience, as well as talking about how the figure looks and feels. Well, you might be correct, Darren, but I can tell you there are a lot of people that criticize you if you don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because God knows I have been criticized numerous times for not having the right weapon. And I guarantee you that the video that's going to drop tomorrow, when I didn't realize that the gun on top of the Stinger for the gridiron is a Javelin rocket. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I saw that. The
Yeah.
Javelin. I was impressed he knew that, actually.
He was impressed himself that he knew that.
I saw that too, but I mean, never know. You got to be a cheerleader, man.
But it doesn't say Javelin rocket, and I went and looked, and it doesn't. It looks like the optical sensor that they use below it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I thought maybe it was. And then as soon as I went and looked up Javelin rocket, I went, oh, yeah. That's what it is.
More commonly, that Javelin, yeah, that's a U.S. used missile. But where we really saw that, that's a big Soviet vehicle trait, is to have what's called a Sagar missile, which is just like a really animated looking missile, like 4 fins, and it's a missile. And that thing sits on top of a barrel and launches. So, I mean, I was just more impressed that right away he was on it. But yeah, I personally,
I know for a fact that there will be people in that video or in the comments telling me. And again, when someone lets me know something, it's one thing. But then there's people that are critical, and that's fine. You can be critical. But then there's people that are just total dicks about it.
Yeah. And my whole thing is I look at, I will do this for any toy line if I can. I'll do it for Balaverse, I'll do it for Joe, I'll do it for everybody where it could be applicable, right? But if it's not applicable, I want to look at the creativity of the sci-fi design, the artistry, the sculpting, things like that, just like everybody else. But yeah, that's what I enjoy of the toy lines, and it does lend to conversation sometimes on these what if conversations, right? But I laughed with Darren talking about, or Down South saying, I talk about the tactics and all that. Nobody's ever asked me if my tactics are effective. Have I ever won a fight? Nobody's ever asked me. Maybe I have the worst tactical perspective. Eek.
Well, there's multiple ways to look at it because most people don't question how I'm reviewing stuff, right? They say they like it. They're not questioning how I review it or what I say. Others are totally questioning it, and usually they're in the wrong. Because I have no problem admitting when I was wrong with something. I've been wrong many times. That is why I pay child support, because I have been wrong. You can go ask my ex.
Nothing more human.
And look who shows up. Aaron the Toy Enhancer. Sorry I missed it, guys. I'm definitely going to catch a replay. We've been walking around Atlanta tonight. It was already brought up how you will watch the replay.
Aaron's at Dragon Con with Missy and the kids, so I mean he gets an out on this one.
He's walking around right now insulting Balaverse, talking about how Missy doesn't have a broken ankle and she can walk around.
I heard he kicked the Monopoly guy down a flight of stairs.
I heard he took his finger and he dug it into Missy's skin to say, "This is what a real person's skin looks like." It's not hard plastic.
I'm gonna roll
Oh,
the dice, get out to Joe Fest or hotel room within game next year and see if it's just as peaceful as it was last year. After all this stuff is said.
I like that Aaron's okay with understanding the joke and what happened, but
I like Pop Blender comment. When you get down to it, Pop Blender, that's the okay. You know, mini wheats. You had the whole wheat side and the frosted side. My tactical perspective thing that I just talked about, that's my frosted side. This is the whole wheat side. It really doesn't matter. And I get that. I like that perspective just as much. Right?
Well, I've told people numerous times when they say, if you're going to review stuff, know your guns, do your research. And I tell them, I go, I'm reviewing a toy and how the toy looks. If I was reviewing an M4 toy gun compared to an actual M4 rifle, then you can criticize me if I'm getting things wrong. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm reviewing of how it looks, how the detail looks, how the paint might look. When someone says, well, you know what, real military guns, they're not going to be that color. They don't have different colors. I don't give a shit. I'm playing with a toy, and I'm telling you how the paint looks on it and how it looks, right?
I could probably count on one hand how many real military guns have fired at a bunch of ninjas dropping down from the ceiling out of a tank. Right, like it's a fictitious world anyway, so let's not get wrapped around the axles. I get that.
Yeah.
Where I see toy gun relevance is every now and then there's a character where that is the big discussion. Things like a low light, where the rifle is the character to some degree. It's a major accessory, and if it's done wrong, okay, let's talk about what they should have been looking at. That's where it becomes relevant. Or a guy like Tunnel Rat who's supposed to be crawling through tunnels, carting around a gun as big as rock and rolls, right? Like it just doesn't add up. But
right.
It doesn't belong.
Jay Bro is saying, know your guns. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got BBs. He's got 9mm and plus up over there. Yeah.
I'll push him up over 16 by the time we get to Joe Fest. How about that?
I'm wondering how many people. Yeah, no, that's crazy. I could not believe we made it 3 hours and I didn't ask you for a single bathroom break yet. I'm proud of myself. I'm 50 years old. That's not an easy thing to do.
I went Monday Night Toy Ramblings for quite some time before I finally had to use the restroom. Yeah. It took me quite some time. And that's when people were like, oh, you need to get like some sort of break. And it just happened to be that the first Hella Dope Toys commercial, it was just long enough for me to get to the bathroom and go. When he made the second one for me, he's like, man, I had to really cut it down. It would have been longer, but it's pretty long. It's like 2.5 minutes. I'm like, that is perfect. Because there's no rushing. I can make it to the restroom, go, wash my hands, be back, and everything is good.
Yeah.
There are many times that come the end, I am like, all right, well, you know what? We're going to.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the following people.
Aaron says, I'm about to expose this Dairy Queen for having a delicious brownie blizzard. That shit should be illegal. Ask them if they have a Boston cooler, because Boston coolers are amazing.
Okay. Did they hold it upside down too? They have to hold it upside down, or they're supposed to give it to you free.
Aaron says, just piss in a bottle. No one ever knows. Yeah, but I'm worried that I might miss it.
He gave away my.
Or worse, I'd have one of my children walk in while I'm doing it. You don't want that. That's for sure.
I'm just saying, Tony, anybody out there that ever does customs, I mean, we can make the catheters. We can get through these things easy. Like just build solutions, water bottles. It's all good.
Honestly, I would just go get the pens and just sit in here. I was really that worried about, right?
Oh my God, what movie was it? Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Steve Martin when he's going to the bathroom at the table, like just making that face on a live would be precious.
If I told you I've never seen it, would it shock anyone?
Probably not. Too bad we can't watch it on Punks on Film anymore.
You guys can. Anyone is more than willing to pick that up and run with it. I told Matthew that numerous times. It is a time-consuming. It is so. I thought it'd be so easy, and it is so time-consuming.
So now maybe we need to make that a Pops on Film. That sounds like the kind of show Poplander would just run with, eh?
Dude, I told Matthew and Pop that they are more than welcome to continue doing it on their channel. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt's like, give me the access.
Oh yeah, you only have access to create it. I'd have to create the thumbnail. I mean, I could put the thumbnail on there. I told you I can't get the password.
I know the one I would love to see again is the readings. When you the script readings.
Yeah.
Here we need to see another script readings get together with a bunch of people.
I mean, I really enjoy doing that with Jay Bartlett.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy that. There's no doubt about it. But I think I talked to you about that. And
yeah, we talked about it because we had said, wouldn't it be amazing to get Legend Series in on that?
Yeah, because he did one too. I think he did that too. Like I said, I would love to do that, but I'm not putting in the work for that. Especially if they kind of explained how much work it was. Like, here's the script that we did, and picking people and saying like, well, we don't want someone to have like two speaking roles where they're talking to each other for like 3 pages.
Yeah, one guy's being a whole Seth MacFarlane the whole time, right? Like, what's that say?
We started saying, holy shit, we need to all do a script reading of Pulp Fiction. Tony plays Jules.
Oh yeah. Even just seeing them all. Tony plays.
Oh my god, that would be so awesome, dude.
Oh, yeah.
That would be so beyond awesome with Tony yelling about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been 3 hours. I do have to wrap it up because, unfortunately, I am not retired.
Yeah.
Unlike you. There's Tony right there. Say what again, motherfucker?
Where have we seen that one recently?
What?
That particular one, I've seen that in a video recently.
Oh.
Maybe we stay away from Pulp Fiction.
Might be this guy right here. I own the Pulp Fiction copyrights.
God damn it, I told you, you can't say that on the air when it's not true. That's evidence.
But anyway, tell everyone where they can find you and where they should go right now and hit subscribe if they're not.
Okay. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook under Crusty Old Crow. That's where you can find me. Probably way more active on Insta than I am on Facebook right now. And then, of course, my channel is called Crusty Old Crow. And you'll see me more often than not doing something called the Tactical Perspective Toy Review or Crow's Customs Corners or sometimes a hot mic. And that's about it. And if you're looking for me anywhere else than that, then you're looking for the wrong guy because that's pretty much just the only places I hang out. But I also do the Backyard Battlefield, of course, with Aaron the Toy Enhancer and 3-Star Draw every other Wednesday.
And let's see, you're up to 473 subscribers.
Right on. Well, thank you very much for those guys that subscribed, and thanks for the guys that didn't unsubscribe after hearing all this today.
No one would unsubscribe. I mean, they're already here to listen to me.
That's fine.
Unsubscribe to you.
I still appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I had a blast. I know you had asked me if someday I want to come on yours, and then I asked you like right afterwards, and you were like, "Oh, that's not what I wasn't asking." I'm like, I don't do that whole 1-for-1 shit.
No,
Like,
no.
just because somebody asked me to be on their show, I'm not going to ask them. Just because I asked someone to be on mine, I don't expect like, oh, now you need to ask me to come on. That's not how it works. It's just like when you like someone subscribes to you on Instagram, and then they're mad because you don't subscribe back. It's like you didn't give me any content that interested me. Why would I subscribe? I'm glad you subscribed.
And I
But
like,
you
I like
just
to bring that up actually, just because I know some of the guys in the chat that have the channels that are right where I'm at too, right? And that's a teachable moment right there, right? Like when you ask someone onto a live, if they follow up on that, that's not necessarily just like, oh well, I'm trying to be polite. Like it's coincidence, but that crossed my mind, right? Clearly, it must have, right? So
yeah.
I'm glad we talked about that. That's important too, because it's good.
But you'll notice that's what happens with a lot of, and that's what a lot of people want. A lot of people be like, hey, if you come on my show, they'll ask like, hey, if you come on my show, I'll come on yours, and you're like, well, I don't really want you on my show, but if you want me to come on yours, that's fine. Like
and it's hard because you can see all the formulas, you can see all the bad moves, but sometimes as a channel, you still got to go through these moves. Just you're doing them the right way, but they feel wrong in so many different ways. Like, I don't know. I found there was a lot of little traps that you just had to go, forget it. Don't even look at that. Just keep going. Like counting subscribers.
sure, Pop, I like you. I'll come on your show.
Yeah, buddy. I haven't met anybody who's ever not been glued to Pop when he's been on the screen, right? Like, the guy's got charisma.
He has a knack for it. I mean, he also does it, 7 days a week now, so he's getting good at it.
Which is, that's the bartender in him too, right? But we need a jar in front of him every time, like just like at the bar, and then super chats can go into
it. You should have instead of tip jar, you just have super chats.
Yeah. And he's got to like do something with that jar every time they go. Like when you spin in the chair on the
yeah, I think it's pour them a drink is what it is.
Quarters and win every time. Yeah. Pop's got so much potential.
What does Pop say? I wouldn't come on my show either. I still believe I can't believe Matthew still makes himself available every Tuesday. Matthew never wanted to show his face on film. On YouTube. I got him to do it, and now he has no problems with it.
Matthew seems to be one of the busiest people on YouTube that you never see in front of it.
He also knows karate.
Yes. And he doesn't believe in ninjas.
And really doesn't believe when ninjas have their swords on the wrong side.
That's actually the weirdest fight to ever hear about, like ninjas versus not ninjas in theory fight. It's a weird fight.
Oh shit. I don't know, Darren. That those come on a whim.
Oh, we're going to be crossing paths again in a month or two. I was thinking about you at Toys R Us.
I hope not in the shower.
Well, okay. The second time I was thinking about you was at Toys R Us today on clearance, and I started thinking about the thing coming up here with the Toys for Tots, right?
Yeah.
And I know the backyard battlefield, we're going to come and do all that with you and everything like that, but I found it interesting. Toy Store employee manager didn't understand what the process was for Toys for Tots. And I thought, you know what? I didn't know it until you kind of explained about the unopening of toys and things like that. So I was explaining that to her today. You came up about that, and I thought that was kind of cool about that coming up there. That's in October, right?
Yeah, the end of October. October 25th and 26th.
Yeah. But I didn't realize like the toys had to be unwrapped and go through all that process. That was something I learned on this show. And now I'm like telling toy managers, do you know what they do?
And they can't be like old toys. Like you can't go buy a whole bunch of like Power of the Force figures, even if they're wrapped or even if they're unopened. They want something newer.
Yeah.
That's why like John at Sergeant Reds was like, "Why?" He goes, "I have to pick which ones they are." Now, again, he's not going to be grabbing like the hottest new toys, but is it going to be newer? I mean, they're going to be newer toys like McFarlane stuff, G.I. Joe Classified, like Marvel Legends. But obviously, he's not grabbing the ones that are worth $100. And
no, but I love that they made that difference because when you're sick and everything like that, I mean, at some point you got to remember there's dignity involved in charity, and when you're giving a kid garbage, the kid knows.
Exactly.
Right, and it's not a good place.
And he even said, like, him and his wife were saying that Marines were like, these kids, like, they don't really care, to be honest. They're just happy to get anything because they don't have anything. But you're absolutely right. If someone's getting something that they know is something old piece of crap, yeah. But, yeah, it is an old toy, so it's not like I'm going to John and he's just pulling out some old shit that has been sitting there, a bunch of Star Wars Power of the Force that he just picked up in a collection.
Yeah.
He can give that Defiant to me if he wants, though.
HasLab patches can be thrown out there and nobody will say anything.
Maybe that'll be next year that someone throws in the HasLab patch.
Yeah. Kids love that for their backpacks, by God.
Nothing like it. Here's your patches for your backpack. We can't afford backpacks.
Big year.
Cover up that hole in your shirt.
Poster now.
3-star says that would be an excellent time to help get all those shitty Marvel Legends out of Hollies. But that's what the people don't want. Like, I mean, again,
kids know what shitty Marvel Legends are too.
Yeah, they can. That is for sure. So
yeah. All of a sudden, the Eternals are the most popular thing kids ever see. I don't think so.
And then they make them watch the movie, and they're like,
"Yeah,
I thought Christmas wasn't bad enough as it is."
You force them into conversion and teach them Tony Figs, right? Like, it was a setup.
Here's all these Marvel Legends. Now we're going to make you watch Welcome to the Terrordrome so you can learn how to customize them into something cool.
Yeah, exactly.
This is your Christmas.
Subscribe.
Yeah, Pop Blender. Look at him. Don't get me started on the Eternals. I didn't hate the Eternals like everyone else. It just wasn't great. Just
got Marvel started on the Eternals.
They had some hot girls in it, I'll tell you that much.
Maybe
that's the only reason why I cared for it.
I think I could get the entire wave of Eternals at Toys R Us right now for under $40.
I still think that's too much.
Yep.
So anyway, let's wrap it up. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's always fun to chat with you, and I do chat with you a good amount. So,
and thank you, man. I appreciate this. This was everything everybody told me it would be. Great time. I much appreciate this. Thank you.
You should probably look and see who's coming on next so I can promote that, right? Let's see here. And next week we have Gun Bunny, if he's still here. Is it Gun Bunny already?
That's awesome.
Oh, I better start filling out October. I didn't realize we're already on September.
Yeah, we're closing it out. Shit, school and everything. But Gun Bunny, that's going to be a big one, man, because holy crap, who isn't a Gun Bunny fan these days?
Yeah, I should probably send out that sticker he wanted. Like, yep, I'm going to get it. And like a few people have sent me. I'm like, now I feel like Tony's Figs, who never send shit out.
But
anyway, Crow, thank you very much. I definitely do appreciate it. Go check him out. If you need to find his links in the description, both his Instagram and his YouTube. Crow, tell everyone where they can find you.
So once again, that's Crusty Old Crow. That's my handle on Insta and on YouTube. And if you follow Aaron the Toy Enhancer or 3-Star Draw, I creep into their channel sometimes as part of that backyard battlefield. And then the rest of the time, you can't find me because I'm ex-military. I'm really good at that.
All right. For everyone else, you know where you can find me every Monday and every Thursday right here in this seat, which I'm going to have to replace eventually. So, Crow, thank you very much. Everyone, good night, and we will see you guys soon.
Bye.